Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. Secure pocket dimension. This was it. Before him hovered a massive gray rock. It was cut into a perfect diamond. Runic symbols covered every inch of the rock. They glowed a pale yellow. Silver holy chains helped bind the rock and keep it sealed. A large shimmering yellow barrier hung in the air around the rock. The overwhelming holy energy concentrated on the rock was intense. The majority of it was being used on the seals that bound the rock together. The barrier around it was a last-minute protection that the exhausted biblical god had erected before he had rushed to the battlefield a dimension away. It's amazing. Somehow he managed to channel part of heaven's energy into this dimension to have it continuously renew these seals. Truly the Lord is great. Well, if you had to go through all the trouble of subduing 666 then sealing it away, I bet you wouldn't want it breaking out quickly afterwards either. Rizavam and the other members of Clipoth chuckled in amusement at his reply. Their unwilling member who had made the first comment could do nothing but glance nervously between his laughing captors. The barrier surrounding the rock was very powerful. Even as tired and rushed as he was, the biblical god was able to place a barrier that only his faithful believers could enter. Rizavam's earlier brute force attack hadn't been enough to crack it. The one among his group with any skill in regards to barriers was able to discern a glaring loophole in the barrier's construction. In his rush to arrive at the raging battlefield, the biblical god had not put any extra security measures on the barrier. So a faithful follower of his could enter the barrier and disable it from inside. Rizavam had found a priest who greatly valued his sister. With the threat of his sister and her family's life on the line, the priest had agreed to help break this barrier. Do it, now. The priest easily passed the yellow barrier and began chanting from inside. He had no idea what was inside this rock, but he hoped the Heavenly Father would forgive him his weakness in this moment. Then several minutes later the barrier fell and Rizavam grinned cruelly. Good, kill him. One of his subordinates shot forward and quickly decapitated the priest. The head and body lazily floated forward and bumped into the rock. As it was the only source of gravity in this dimension, Rizavam flapped his wings and moved toward the rock. He gave the seals a glance over and while not versed in runic seals was nonetheless impressed by what he could tell of them. See this here you guys, this is close to 20,000 sulfur monosulfide class holy seals and if I am correct at least 100 SSS god tier seals. This is some serious sealing power. One of his subordinates whistled in appreciation. Another voiced his sudden thought. Lord Rizavam, how is it we are supposed to get this being to fight Great Red again? He chuckled at his subordinate's foolishness. Do you know nothing of 666? While there is truly almost nothing know about this being, what is a fact however, is that it and Great Red fought a titanic battle within the gap. Ophis witnessed it and said that Great Red denied 666 from passing beyond the gap. We have the same plan, so certainly it will help us. Now silence while I work. Rizavam had been trying to come up with a way to remove the seals, but when he tried channeling devil energy into the holy seals nothing happened. So his backup plan would have to succeed or he would be pissed. He flew away from the rock and his followers did as well. He then began chanting and channeled over half his magic into a huge attack. Pure magic concentrated into a massive sphere. He smirked and then unleashed the power upon the rock. As the magic struck the rock and exploded, a huge cloud of smoke billowed up and hung around the rock. With a flick of his wrist a gust of wind blew the smoke away to reveal the still intact rock underneath. TCH, what the fuck is with this rock? He muttered. His minions were silent, not daring to laugh at his apparent failure. Then one raised his arm and pointed. Look my lord, there is a missing section. Indeed, a small hole existed in the rock where his attack had struck. About a dozen seals were damaged and several were gone. Most of the chains had overlapped one another where he aimed. They now floated aimlessly around the rock after snapping off. With a hole in the seals, 666 should now be able to escape. The group was silent and waited to see if anything would happen. After several minutes it appeared nothing was changing, so Rizavam started summoning his energy for another attack. But as he did, the rock started emitting a foreign power. Just a small dose leaked through the hole, but the potency of that small bit of energy knocked everyone but Rizavam away. As if the first tendril of power had just been checking the rock's integrity, a second probe of power shot out of the rock. But this did far more. The rock exploded. Shards flying in every direction and a haze hung in the air. Everyone had covered their faces to protect themselves from debris. Rizavam was the first to look and see what exactly they had just unsealed. Outside of this pocket dimension, a tremendous shockwave blasted across the earth. An ear-shattering boom echoed from a single point in the sky over Japan. Humans across the globe were frightened by the phenomenon as a solid wave of energized air pressure zoomed across the sky. Behind heaven's gilded gates within their own dimension, the power could be felt and every angel was put on edge. Those who remembered the brief feeling of that power from years ago felt a cold shiver go down their spine. A warning alarm was blaring in an empty chamber in a forgotten room. Archangel Michael was suddenly swept into a torrent of millions of prayers for protection and help from the occurrence. The unexpected influx temporarily overwhelming him. As he regained his senses, he grabbed his pain meds and downed a mouthful. He recognized that energy and was sure his budding headache was only going to grow. In another parallel dimension, races such as the devils, fallen angels, and the numerous other mythical races were alerted to the foreign power. Its strength so powerful it struck at the gaps between this dimension cluster. In Japan, a teenage girl and her peerage recovered and ran outside of their clubhouse to join the growing throng of people gazing skyward. Within the real gap, a dimension that connected this cluster of dimensions to the greater universal dimension network, Great Red stopped his twisting dive and gazed into the open air. So he has been freed. I wonder if that punk will come back for round 2. He decided to fly off to where Ophis was loitering around. He wanted to make sure she wouldn't interfere again. His huge bulk flew great looping spirals as he double-timed it towards the Infinity Dragon. Gazing into the sky, the Occult Research Club of Kuo Academy had no clue what was going on. This club was comprised of the 6 present members and the one perpetually absent 7th. They were better known as the Peerage of Rias Gremory, a noble high-class devil who had joint control of the city of Kuo. Each member besides Rias had been reincarnated as one of her devil servants. It was well within the social norm for her to treat them as servants, but she preferred thinking of them as her friends. Recently, the group had managed to help her overcome an unwanted arranged marriage. They had been relaxing after school in the clubroom, and Rias had been enjoying the newfound freedom no longer being engaged brought. She no longer had her fiancé Riser Phoenix looming over her future happiness. But the time for carefree enjoyment appeared to be over. A great disturbance had appeared over their city, and the noise and pressure emitted had been particularly immense from being so close. Rias was currently looking for the other noble high-class devil who she shared control of the city with. Sona Citri's slim figure caught her eye and she dashed her direction. Her peerage was hot on her heels, and they could see Sona's peerage grouped up around their leader. The two groups acknowledged each other briefly before they returned to scanning their surroundings while their king spoke. Sona, would you happen to know what that was? Judging from the speed the pressure traveled and the extreme level the noise rose to, I would guess it was a shockwave from an ultimate level being doing something. But since we can't see them overhead, I really have no idea. Rias nodded her head. Yeah, do you feel that energy signature? It feels really strange. Yes, it has an odd feeling to it, but it is very potent. A short head of white hair bumped into Rias's elbow, causing said girl to turn and look, prompting Sona to give her attention as well. It was Kaneko, Rias's rook. Chakra. What was that, Kaneko? I couldn't hear you. Energy is chakra. Very strong. Oh, chakra? Really, how strange. I can't imagine what someone could have done with chakra to create this affect. Kaneko turned and returned to scanning the surroundings. Her king, Rias, trusted her sensor capabilities, and Kaneko was glad she hadn't second-guessed her information. Her species of yokai was adept as chakra use and were natural sensors because of it. At any rate, I think we need to contact someone. This disturbance would have been strong enough to be felt across the world, and no doubt humans Holy shit. Look, Sona was cut off by another member of Rias's peerage. Issei, her one and only pawn, was a very exaggerative person, so no one was sure what he might be exclaiming about so loudly. But they all turned to looking. Oh dear. Akeno, Rias's queen, said. Across the sky, several jets could be seen spinning out of control, nose-diving towards the city. Prez, we gotta do something. We are super strong and can fly, right? We can totally save them. Sona's peerage was murmuring among themselves, and Rias turned to address her peerage. Well, say we could, but that would be a lot of memories to modify. So I am not really sure what to do. Before they could discuss any further, a black hole appeared where the shockwave had originated and a figure stepped through. The same chakra pressure from before hammered down on the city. The force was overwhelming and the residents of the city were suffocating under this figure's presence. Thankfully it disappeared and the figure could only barely be sensed by Kaneko. The figure multiplied and 5 dark blurs streaked across the sky and caught each plane, where they then lowered them to the ground safely. Where the figure went to from there, no one was sure. But the two peerages were well aware that a being well above their level was within the city and they were already heading to a secure location to contact someone. Earlier in the pocket dimension, when Rizavam looked toward the remains of the rock, he saw a human figure floating in space. A large blue aura whipped violently around the figure before it seemed to reel it in and subdue the fiery blue energy. Even from this distance he could see steam rising off the figure and gently dissipating in the air above. He watched as the figure stretched and then they spoke. In the dead silence of the void it was easy to listen in. Yawn. Aw man, I am damn sore. That fucking old geezer thought that rock would hold me, huh? Well, listen up, Naruto Uzumaki doesn't go down that easy. Ya hear me, old man? Naruto stretched again. He had really felt cramped inside that rock. Then he looked around and noticed a collection of humans in a group. They were flying with, oi, are those fucking bat wings? Who do you guys think you are? Creepy bat wings are some Sasuke curse seal kinda shit. 666, my name is Rizavam Levon Lucifer. I have released you from the sealing rock that the biblical God placed you in. I know before you were defeated you were trying to get past Great Red in the dimensional gap. This is also our plan. Will you work together with us? Rizavam completely ignored Naruto's comment about their wings and instead straight up asked for his assistance. Great Red? Was that the big-ass dragon I was fighting earlier? And hey, where is that old bastard? I am gonna rip his beard off and make him watch as I burn it in front of him. Ha ha ha. Rizavam stared at the figure of 666 or Naruto Uzumaki. As he, for the figure was that of a young blonde man, had shouted upon breaking the rock apart. Before he could reply, Naruto suddenly appeared nose to nose with him and spoke again. Oi, are you listening to me? What is with the bat's wings? And where is that old damn bastard? I am gonna kick his ass for putting me in that rock. Rizavam jerked away from Naruto and flew back several feet. He got a good look at the man now. If he had to guess, this Naruto looked to be 20 years old. He had short spiky blonde hair and light blue eyes. A set of whisker-like marks decorated his cheeks. Before he could take in anything else, he noticed the expression on this being's face. He could see the man start to curl his lip into a snarl. Before he could shout another round of questions, Rizavam spoke up. Naruto. Your name is Naruto, right? He got a fast nod of the head for confirmation. These wings are just our devil wings. Do you not know what devils are? It was a perplexing question to both sides. A being who fought the biblical God and Great Red surely knew what devils were. While for Naruto nothing really came to mind with regards to devils. Devils are like demons or something, aren't they? You guys don't look like demons. Rizavam's personal philosophy about devil behavior is that they should act like demons, but for the man in front of him he doubted he would care about his opinion on the matter. Devils are not demons. Many humans confuse us, but we are different. But your other question, who is it you are speaking about? Who is this old bastard you are trying to find? Naruto was content finding out the men before him were not demons. He could sense they had no intent to attack him. The guy had been asking for his help earlier. Now he just wanted to find the old bastard to pay him back. He was a big glowing guy. Had a long white beard. Fast and strong as the Shinigami. He is one tough old bastard. The guy who put me in that rock. He should be around here. He only put me in that rock like 5 minutes ago. Rizavam had again scanned the blonde to get a better sense of him. He was shirtless and had the remains of some tattered black pants on. His feet were bare and his body had a fit appearance. He looked to be about 5.5 feet tall. But he had no injuries and seemed to be in good health for having been sealed for several hundred years. Naruto noticed the man's eyes dart to his attire and looked himself. How well, what ya know? My clothes are missing. Rizavam watched him touch a small black tattoo on his wrist before a puff of smoke covered him from sight. When it cleared, Naruto was fully dressed in a black shirt, covered by a black flak vest. His pants had been replaced with a new set of black ninja pants and his feet once more had a pair of open-toed ninja sandals. Currently he was wrapping white tape around his right sleeve while the left one was already tapped down. A small pouch was attached to his hip. Naruto glanced up at him and winked. Yeah, anyway, I am pretty sure the guy you are asking about is the biblical god. He fought and sealed you inside that rock over 300 years ago. Then he died after heading to fight in the war after sealing you. So yeah, he is dead. Naruto cocked his head to the side and squinted his eyes at Rizavum. An unnoticeable flick of his fingers and a quick jolt of chakra had his tape roll resealed inside his wrist. So you are saying that guy the first fought was a god? Just what kinda luck do I have? From one to a dragon to another. When Naruto finished speaking to the guy with 12 bat wings, another conversation was started inside his head. When he had slammed his chakra through the hole in the rock, he wasn't the only one to wake back up. The nine-tailed fox named Kurama had been locked away inside of Naruto since just after Naruto had been born. And Kurama desperately needed to hear the sound of another's voice. He had been in a self-induced hibernation after they had been sealed for 50 years. With Naruto blasting his chakra out, Kurama was woken up. He had not immediately started talking to Naruto but instead took the time to monitor their situation. He had listened to the back and forth and decided to finally speak to Naruto. Oi, Naruto. Can you hear me? Oh hey there Kurama. What do you think? Has it really been 300 years? Shit kid. I went to sleep after like 100 years or something, so yes, it has probably been that long. You mean you were awake when we got sealed into here? Fuck me if it's been over 300 years, what's going on? Alright, here is what I know. When that dragon was about to beat us, you ripped through to another dimension. You came out and head-butted that old guy, who is apparently this biblical god. He was pissed, so he attacked and overwhelmed your weakened state. Then he sealed you away in what I guess is a pocket dimension. You were ridiculously injured at that point, but the god couldn't waste the energy required to kill you. It was less wasteful to seal you. So you were frozen in time basically. While I was not affected since I am sealed in a separate pocket dimension inside your body. I tried to heal you with our chakra, but your body couldn't be affected. Luckily you couldn't die as you were essentially frozen in time. But I was able to rest and reclaim my chakra reserves. So I am at full strength. When you broke free, I was able to easily repair the damage you had suffered, and I am currently trying to stimulate your chakra to rejuvenate as well. But it is going to take away. So basically we need to get out of this dimension, get some food, and you need proper rest before you try to do anything else. Alright, so you're saying let's ditch this Batwing guy and go get some food and sleep? You got it, partner. Lord, wherever your soul may rest, please forgive me. The alarm system that monitored the barrier and sealing defenses around 666 were very clear with the message they were blaring. The pocket dimension had been entered twice. The barrier had been deactivated and the rock where 666 resided had been destroyed. Shortly thereafter, an exorcist in Kuo reported a being ripping open a dimensional portal and entering the airspace above the city. Michael was well aware that this was the approximate location where the pocket dimension connected to the Earth's. So one of the beasts of the apocalypse was now loose within the world. Michael could remember the conversation he had with his lord that fateful day. The four Satans were driving a wedge into the Angels' line and Azazel was rallying his faction to counterattack. Their situation was looking grim. God should have already arrived but was clearly delayed by the unknown energy signature that had been sensed earlier. He was taking a moment to direct their forces in the battle and was near the rear of their army. Finally his lord appeared before him. He looked very drained and Michael had immediately begun trying to help him. But God had lifted his arm and conjured a chair which he sat heavily upon. Michael, did you sense the being I fought with? The question was simple, but Michael could tell it was important. He nodded. Yes, my lord. It was a strange signature which helped me differentiate it over the chaos around here. Good, if the worst should happen today, I want you to remember my words now. The being I encountered is far too powerful to be free in the world. He seems to have been in combat with Great Red in the Gap. When he appeared before me he was very wounded. He attacked me before I had even registered his presence. For this sin I fought back. Even while wounded he was able to fight near evenly with me. But he was surprised by something I said and I was able to seal him away. Michael, he must always remain sealed. I fear his re-entry into the world would bring about the true apocalypse. The end of our world and the downfall of mankind. A being as evil and powerful as he is a much greater threat than any devil or fallen angel. Bowing his head, Michael took a knee. My lord, I hear your words. I pray for righteous victory today, and may this conversation have been in vain. But for all his efforts that day his lord had fallen in combat. He had taken the 4 great Satans alongside him and devastated the devil and fallen angel armies. But he had still fallen all the same. The war had come to an uneasy truce after that day. And later, when word of Great Red's duel in the Gap leaked, Michael was able to piece it together with the words of God from that day. It had reinforced his drive to keep that dimension locked away for eternity. But he had failed his lord once more. The final command he had been entrusted with was broken, and he had no idea how it had happened. Michael stepped out of the room where the forgotten signal device lay. He snapped his fingers and the closest angel instantly teleported to him. Gather the seraphs. Gather everyone. We have a problem. Lord Azazel. Lord Azazel, did you feel that energy? A strange pressure just crashed upon the city. Yes, I am well aware. For now head to the underworld and alert everyone. Call everyone back from their missions. Otherwise remain on standby until I give another order. His bodyguard bowed deeply and flew off towards their teleportation room. Azazel stood up and drained his beer. He walked to his closest and pressed a special panel on the wall. It opened up a hidden room, and inside his armor stood displayed on a rack. He recognized that energy signature. It had been the one to delay God before he arrived at the final battle. Something big was happening today. And it definitely felt like he would need this suit. After all, 666 was supposed to be the bringer of the apocalypse. Shit, Graphia. Shit, oh, I can't take it. Wait, no, more, yeah. Yes, do it some more. Honestly, Sirzex, it is just a back rub. Graphia, please, it just feels so good. Graphia, know across the supernatural community as the strongest queen, and the second strongest female devil could only sigh at her husband's ridiculousness. The powerful energy surge had caught everyone's attention, and after a boring and useless discussion between the noble devil council, Sirzex had demanded a back rub. She didn't know why she put up with it sometimes. Lord Lucifer, your sister Lady Rias has sent a message. She requests you hear it immediately. Graphia hid a smile of triumph at the interruption. Sirzex would quickly lose all thoughts of goofing off if something serious was up from Rias. And indeed, he had quickly stood up and was pulling on his shirt. Enter and speak the message. One of the servants of the Lucifer household entered, then bowed low before his master. He withdrew a piece of paper from inside his pocket. Big brother, I need you or Graphia to come to Kuo right now. A huge energy wave blasted across the sky earlier. It was then followed by a figure ripping a hole in the sky before exiting into the airspace above the city. The pressure this figure gave off just by being here was enough to knock my breath away, and everyone around us was on the ground suffocating. I don't know where this being went, but I think they are still in the city. Please come, I think I need your help with this one. End of the message, my lord. Graphia, gather the peerage and meet me at the circle. I will be going straight to Kuo. I want you all to follow behind me when you are prepared. With that, Sirzex, Lucifer, often considered the strongest devil in the underworld, strode from the room. If his little sister needed his help, nothing would stand in his way. Hey Kurama, do you think people can really fly in those giant metal things? Naruto thought inside his head. They must be able to, kid. How else would they have gotten up there? I bet your chakra just stunned them out of flight or something. Naruto nodded to himself. Kurama was able to perceive the gesture and once more went back to trying to boost Naruto's chakra recovery. Naruto was strolling down the sidewalk in this town and had his nose on high alert. It looked like it was midday and the street was crowded. He had noticed large metal vehicles moving up and down the open roadway and observed people walking along the raised side section. His clothing stuck out slightly, but people seemed to just brush him off. He knew when people were trying to ignore him. But he wasn't bothered, so his hands were behind his head as he walked carefree, searching for some food. A smell he was very familiar with caught his attention, and he began drooling at the thought. Just go and eat it already. I mean, when was the last time you actually ate ramen? Yeah, you're right, Kurama, might as well enjoy myself. And so Naruto entered a sidewalk stand. A row of stools lined a counter and only several were still open. Naruto quickly captured one before he was blocked from eating here. A girl behind the counter noticed him and smiled. I will be with ya in a sec, dear. He took the time to read the menu. Strange we speak the same language here, huh? He idly noticed. Kurama just huffed his agreement. Alright dear, what'll it be? 5 miso please. 5 miso, huh? That's a pretty funny accent you got. Where are ya from? A pretty far away place. No one has ever heard of it. The waitress accepted his answer and went to relay the order to the chef. A couple minutes later she brought him 2 steaming bowls. He quickly finished them off after hearing the others would be following shortly. Oh wow, you finished these 2 already? Hey, it's been a while since I have had ramen this good. Gimme those 3, and tell the chef he rocks. The waitress smiled and went to walk back to pick up another order. Hey Mr. Takeda, a customer wanted me to say. What was that? I didn't catch what you said. I forgot, but I will take this next order up. When she turned around and went to the counter she glanced at an empty seat on the left and noticed 3 empty bowls. She must have forgotten to take them to the back. As Naruto walked away he finished his 4th hand sign and his genjutsu fell over the people in the shop. No one would remember him ever being there or eating 5 bowls of miso ramen. He grimaced slightly but spotted a sign that read hotel and entered the building. He walked to the counter and discreetly went through the same set of signs. The waiting employee turned around and handed him an empty room key. Then wished him a good day. Naruto stumbled up the first flight of stairs before slapping himself awake again. It would do no good to fall asleep on the stairs. He made it to his room on the 3rd floor and walked inside. He zipped through another set of hand signs before touching his hands to the door. It flashed briefly before the kanji for locked appeared carved into the wood. He turned and collapsed onto the bed. He briefly felt bad about cheating these people out of honest work. But this was nothing compared to what he has done before. A ninja's work was never honest. Sirzex entered into the room and noticed the whole club was assembled before him. Even that silly half-vampire boy. He let his senses out and noticed a disturbing amount of powerful people around the city. But no one felt similar to the energy that he had felt even in the underworld earlier. Hiya everyone. Brother, powerful angels, fallen angels, and other signatures are popping up all over the city. But Kaneko here hasn't been able to sense that person's chakra since they disappeared. Do you know what is going on? Wheel, I have some pretty good guesses. But I don't know for sure right now. If it is the one I think it is, then there might be a lot of trouble brewing right now. The group started mingling and Rias told her brother everything the group had observed. When suddenly another bright flash illuminated the club room and Seraphel Leviathan strode into the room. Where she then quickly started hugging her sister. In the chaos of Seraphel's antics, Sirzex caught her eye and she nodded to him. They both suspected the same thing. So when both of their peerages entered the room, the younger devils were awed at the grouping of so many powerful devils. Everyone, there is someone loose in this city right now. Other factions are gathering and everyone is searching for this person right now. We don't have a lot of information but it is believed to be 666 or as some may know it Trihexa. One of the 2 beasts of the apocalypse. We do not know what this being looks like, only that it is strong enough to fight with Great Red and the biblical god was exhausted after sealing it away. Apparently it has a human-like form. Kaneko here said the being utilizing chakra. So go and search for strange sources of chakra. Do not get into any fights with other races. Both Satan's peerages bowed deeply before scattering across the city. Sona and Rias's peerages were still in the room and they were now even more confused on the situation. Seraphel, if this being is really 666, what is about to happen? Sona asked a good question and everyone turned to listen. Well, 666 is supposed to be as strong as the greatest existence. Or nearly so. If a fight breaks out against it then this city is likely to get demolished. And after that? Who knows? Great Red could probably kill the entire devil race if he tried. So a being just as powerful could do anything. The group was amazed. Was the figure who saved those planes from crashing really that powerful? Outside Naruto's hotel room, are you absolutely certain? Archangel Michael turned to look the Governor General of the Fallen Angels, Azazel, in the face. He smiled cheekily and replied, Yes Michael, when Sirzex here said to scout for chakra I went and got my chakra detector. Which immediately registered this growing power. Inside this room is a source of chakra that is so vast it almost appears infinite, and it is still growing. So if 666 is anywhere, it is most likely inside this room. Around him, the other seraphs hardened their faces. The two Satans readied themselves, and his attending fallen angels sprouted their wings. The three factions were preparing to work together to meet 666 before any of the other factions could try and potentially sway it to their side. Yes, something big is about to happen today, Azazel thought with a smirk. Naruto was blissfully asleep. Before being sealed away, he had been awake for a week, and being frozen in time did not translate to a good night's rest. So as soon as he had laid down, he had passed out. As he slept, his dreams wandered around. He visited a land of ramen, and saved Konoha as the Hokage. But currently he was revisiting his last fight. That big-ass lizard was about to strike him down, so he had ripped a portal open and dived through. Before he could even get his bearings, his head had smashed straight into something. Gotta be the worst way to come out of one of those. He had grumbled. Then he looked up while massaging his scalp to see what he hit. A huge glowing old man stood before him, curiously also rubbing his head with a murderous glare fixed over his face. "Boy, how dare you! I shall smite you for the sin you have committed," the huge man had thundered. Naruto looked confused. "Sin? The fuck you talking about? All I did was smash heads with. Do you think you were old man?" The man had struck out with his left fist. Naruto jerked his head to the side to dodge. The man seemed to get angrier at this and started raining blows on his opponent. Naruto began zipping around, narrowly avoiding each strike as it came. God had quickly grown tired and instead summoned a huge amount of magic. He then unleashed it in a terrifying blast. Naruto was caught on the edge of the explosion and blown down to the ground. "I have you now." He then rained down a flurry of quick magical attacks. A huge cloud of dust hung in the air over his downed opponent. Until God whipped around and saw the sneer on his foe's face. "Fuck you and your beard, old man. I didn't do anything. Stop attacking me. If you don't stop right now, I will be forced to kill you." "Huh, you kill me? Do not jest with me, fool, for I am God. Kneel before me." The burst of intent behind those words caught Naruto off guard. The man, no, the God before him, had not lied. God knew his side was suffering on the battlefield and he had no more time to waste. He threw a binding God-class seal and caught his opponent with it. Naruto was suddenly restricted. His chakra felt slightly heavier and his arms cried out in pain slightly more. His wounds became more apparent to him at that moment. Then a second seal followed and struck him, followed by a matching pair. But Naruto dodging the incoming pair and watched the flabbergasted God's expression. "You can still move? You bet I can. I am future Hokage Naruto UAHCK." While Naruto spoke, God had shot several more seals. He could see his first two already wearing off. Naruto was further restricted by these two new seals and began trying to channel his minimal chakra to overpower them. God then summoned up a huge chunk of earth and using both arms motioned it towards the struggling man. He slammed his hands together and the earth came together into a perfect diamond shape. He rushed forward and began slapping God-tier seals left and right all over the rock. For Naruto, he could tell the God was trying to seal him inside this rock, so he started struggling. For Naruto, it had seemed like he had been mid-sealing when the crack had appeared and he had managed to wiggle his chakra free and escape from the rock. His dream was just reaching this point when he suddenly sprang awake. Rias knew she really shouldn't be doing this, but she had to see what was going on. Her natural curiosity demanded it. Besides this, 666 was supremely powerful and apparently evil-natured. It could potentially join her peerage. A week earlier she knew it would have been impossible. 666 and her just have too large of a power gap. But her brother had gifted her a very special mutation piece as a congratulations for freeing herself of Riser. Wait, what if brother knew this was going to happen and gave me this piece so I could recruit 666? Yes, brother, if crafty like that. Oh, if this is true, I will certainly make sure I repay him. Hee. Akeno elbowed Rias in the gut. Said girl turned and gave her queen a grateful look. Anytime she started laughing darkly like that, Akeno knew to stop her. But right now she and her peerage were hiding behind several cars in an empty street. It was near midnight and apparently the joint group of the three factions had found 666. It was believed to be staying within one of this hotel's rooms. Perhaps trying to regain some of its strength after breaking free from God's seals. Prez, are you sure this is a smart idea? There was Issei again, such a loyal boy. He would do anything for her. Especially if she'd promised him a quick peep or several seconds of feeling her up. She had her pawn wrapped around her finger. But he was so naive and annoying sometimes. Oh well, it was kind of cute. Yes, Issei. Even if something goes wrong, Searsex will keep us safe. Don't worry. In fact, be happy, you are probably going to have a new peerage member to get to know soon. Yes, hopefully you will. Akeno shifted her foot forward and put pressure onto Rias's toes. The girl managed to turn her dark laughter into a cough and disguise it from the more innocent members of her peerage. Issei was quickly concerned about her health. Boom. A small shockwave echoed through the empty street. Things were getting started. She could vaguely sense her brother and the others moving into the room. They had clearly gone for shock and awe by blowing the door from its hinges. They must be confronting 666 right now. The street grew silent once more. A barrier was placed around this block, keep humans away and forcing those inside asleep. So there would be no disturbances in this confrontation. But the silence grew and nothing appeared to be changing. But then suddenly the tremendous pressure they had felt earlier rolled out of the building. Asia, Kaneko, Kiba and Issei were floored immediately. Akeno transformed into her priestess outfit to help steady herself. Rias was channeling her magic into her legs to help herself out. Oh dear, what an immense energy. Akeno licked her lips seductively then giggled. But Rias ignored her and her floundering peerage members. Her senses were trained on the growing powers within the hotel. She could distinctly feel 4 huge holy energies. The seraphs were not going to hold back. The slightly tainted holy energy of a fallen angel also wafted through the air. Then 2 more explosions of energy came to life. Her brother and Seraphel were not messing around. The huge collection of auras was overwhelming and Rias found herself on her ass on the concrete staring wide-eyed as the hotel across the street exploded into blazing timbers. 10 figures could be seen flying through the smoke and heading into the sky. She caught a glimpse of Crimson and knew her brother was there. When Naruto's door was blown off its frame, he snapped up and leapt to his ceiling. Chakra attached him and his right hand moved and snatched a kunai from his pouch. Then he looked to see what had happened. 9 people had entered his room. He sensed their intent and they were all over the board. A couple were curious, and several others seemed eager. The rest were looking to fight. Their anger and surprisingly hate was rolling off them. Little did he know, but one of the seraphs was close to being overcome by his hatred and falling. To the seraphs, Naruto was the main reason God had died. The devils responsible for dealing the death blow was already dead. But Naruto was the reason that blow could have been struck. And their anger of the loss of their lord was peeling open long-forgotten emotional wounds. Michael knew his fellows were not looking to talk. But talking was the first option the group would take. Even if 666 was his natural enemy. When the 3 faction leaders saw a young blonde man stuck to the ceiling of his room upside down, they paused. Sure, looks were deceiving, but this person was far from what any of them imagined 666 looking like. Was this man really almost as strong as Great Red? Oi, the fuck are you guys doing? I was trying to sleep, ya know. And look at the door. I hope you know you are paying for that. The assembled group sweat dropped and took a moment to examine 666. Naruto drew a second kunai and palmed one in either hand. He dropped from the ceiling and held the kunai in a reverse grip, keeping them out of sight against his wrist. 666. How is it that you broke free of God's seal? Michael had stepped forward and was trying to keep things on talking terms. The tension in the room was rather thick. Why does everyone keep calling me 666? My name is Naruto Uzumaki. As for that rock I was in? Some guy with 12 bat wings broke me out. I didn't stick around to hear what he was trying to tell me. I had better things to do. His answer surprised the group and everyone turned to look at the 2 devils in the group. Searsex held his hands up in a placating gesture. Ah, don't look at us. No devil was sanctioned to do this. I didn't even know where Naruto was. Raphael, one of the other seraphs, stepped forward. Enough, 666, you are directly responsible for the death of our lord. And now you have sided with the devils to escape your righteous imprisonment. For these sins I shall absolve you from this world. 12 white wings sprang from his back and a suit of golden armor enveloped his body. He summoned a giant golden sphere and threw it at Naruto. No Raphael. But it was too late. The hotel room exploded and blew the top off the hotel. Through the smoke the room's occupants ascended into the sky. Raphael hovered away from the group and stared down intently into the smoke. A dull gray kunai came zipping out of the smoke and Raphael barely saw it under the moon's light. He brought a shield of light up and deflected the thrown weapon. But he didn't see the second kunai hidden in the shadow of the first. It struck his left thigh and sent him reeling backwards. Naruto appeared in a swirl of leaves in the sky across from the group. His chakra reserves were about half full from eating and resting, so he started channeling his chakra and a giant blue flaming aura sprung up around him. He channeled a small bit of Kurama's chakra to augment his voice. I don't know who you are or why you insist on attacking me for doing nothing. But if you continue attacking me I will kill you. I will not give you a third chance. Shit, even his voice is full of power. Raphael, you fool, what have you done? Silence, Azazel. I will not hear your words against my subordinate. I will handle Raphael later. Right now we need to deal with the matter at hand. While Azazel and Michael argued, Raphael ripped the intruding knife out of his thigh and was glaring hatefully at Naruto. 666. How dare you strike one of the Lord's servants? I am the Seraph Raphael. Kneel before me and beg forgiveness and perhaps your soul shall be saved. Raphael, enough foolishness. Stand down now. While they were speaking, Naruto had let his chakra settle but kept it ready for a moment's notice. Shit, there are no logs around here. I have nothing to replace with. It's okay. Even though the log can't protect me in the sky, I will always be grateful for your protection. He was scanning the environment, but the buildings were all short and there was nothing around them at this height. Naruto, was it? Do you even know what's going on here? A red-haired man with bat wings was speaking to him. Yeah, it's Naruto, I told y'all already. And as far as I can tell, that dude over there thinks I got his leader killed and I have to let him kick my ass for it. Michael was flying in front of Raphael, his 12 golden wings and halo shined brilliantly in the dark sky. His arm was clasping the younger Seraph's wrist and his eyes were staring hard into Raphael's. What are you doing? Forget your vengeance for a moment. This is the being who our Lord exhausted himself just to seal away. You stand no chance. Do not bring his wrath upon this city. Michael then reached over with his other hand and slapped Raphael hard across the face. Besides, you fool, in your haste to act you may have killed innocent people inside that hotel. Raphael's face paled instantly and he just summoned his shield and dove towards the burning hotel. Naruto eyed his foe carefully as he dived into the smoke. Oi, golden wings. Where is that guy going? I thought for sure he wanted to face his death. Michael hid his anger at the slight and smiled benevolently. Naruto, you said it was. My friend Raphael was just confused. In his haste he has done you and others a great wrong. He is currently trying to ensure his mistake has no more permanent consequences. Now may we please cease discussing death? I wish to know if you could describe the devil who released you. Naruto kept shifting his eyes between Michael, who flew closer, Sirzex, who was still close, and the billowing smoke cloud where Raphael was located. His right hand was hanging loosely next to his gear pouch. Yeah, I guess I could. The guy had 12 bat-like wings. He said his name was Rizavam Leva or something like that. Hey, no closer. Yeah, you bat wings. Sirzex smiled in amusement and drifted backwards once more. He knew who Naruto was talking about, but he did not think Michael knew who it was. Rizavam had never been interested in fighting between the three factions or even during the Devil Civil War. So what was it about releasing Naruto that had caught his attention? Naruto, I see that you are just flying without wings. If I may, are you a god? For you seem very similar to a human. Naruto snorted. Me, a god? I have fought gods before, so I suppose I am similar to them. However, I have never been called one before. But do not think to classify me by your system. In fact, why are you all even here? Well, you are supposed to be the beast of the apocalypse and now you have broken free to bring hellfire upon the living or something like that. You know, an evil wrath-filled monster of destruction. We are here to stop you. Sorry to disappoint, but I think you got the wrong guy. I am fresh out of rampaging impulses. I am just a guy trying to get a good night's sleep. So do not follow me. Naruto slipped into a body flicker and shot out of the sky to a different street several blocks away. Azazel flew up to the other two leaders and said, Well, that was pretty loud and clear. He is just a guy trying to sleep. I don't think it would be wise disturbing his rest. I suggest we all call it an evening as well. Perhaps you could deal with Raphael so he doesn't accidentally go and start a fight with Great Red either. Good night, gentlemen. Rias was the only one conscious among her peerage. When 666 had increased its aura, it had knocked her over from her seated position. Her head was ringing from the blow and the pressure from the aura was suffocating her. Thankfully it had not lasted long and she found herself gasping for breath in the slightly less tense atmosphere. Thank the Satans I am not any closer. What is that angel thinking trying to fight this being? She knew a light-based explosion when she saw one, and clearly an angel had blown the hotel up. Not to mention the only one utilizing magic in the sky above was an angel with his light magic. She could just make out his pale halo in the moonlight. Then she got her first look at 666. He looked to be a young man several years older than herself. He had spiky blonde hair. She couldn't make out his other features over the distance in this light. The angel seemed to be arguing with 666, and then she saw Archangel Michael involve himself. The angel who was fighting 666 suddenly dove back into the smoke. The atmosphere was loosening up, she noticed. The powers overhead were slightly lessening to ease the tension, but they clearly still on edge. 666 was talking with her brother and Michael, then he was just gone. Several leaves swirled around his empty position and were caught in the passing breeze. Rias shook her peerage awake and eagerly bid them to follow her. Kaneko was still able to sense 666 as he was still suppressing his chakra down. He was close, only several blocks over. It was just too bad Rias didn't get the memo to leave Naruto alone that night. But then neither did any of the other factions who had been observing the confrontation. Naruto's feet tapped down onto the pavement. He glanced around and saw no one. He stuck his hands behind his head and started walking down the street. He knew it was late. If the moon here told time like back home, it was probably sometime after midnight. What happened back there? He wondered to himself. He had just been sleeping, before a group of strong people had broken down his door. While they seemed to want to talk to him, that one guy had just recklessly attacked him. He had no interest in chatting after that. So now he was strolling down the street looking for a new place to crash. He was tracking the group's energy signatures and they still seemed to be clustered in the sky. But after walking another block, the group dispersed and most of them seemed to leave the city. Good riddance. Those rude bastards thankfully aren't persistent. He grumbled to himself. Oh, what the hell is this? He really didn't want to deal with anyone else. But before him, standing in the intersection, was a group of teenagers. Oi, the fuck you guys want, huh? The girl with red hair smiled mysteriously at him and the others kept their expressions neutral. Well, almost of them did. A skinny guy with messy brown hair stepped forward at Naruto's question. Hey, don't talk like that to the prez. Issei, please let me handle this matter and don't interrupt again. Okay? Naruto laughed as the boy was whipped into silence. Issei scowled at him, which only increased Naruto's laughing. But he quickly stopped as the red-haired girl stepped further forward. Hello there, 666. My name is Ria. Oh, come on. Enough with this 666 bullshit. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. Next person to call me 666 is getting their nose broken. Rias looked surprised at being interrupted. But she quickly began smilingly pleasantly again. Oh, I apologize, Naruto. The only name I knew to call you by was 666. My mistake. Ook, ya, so what do you want? Do you wanna fight? 'Cause I will kick all your guys' asses. No sweat if you don't leave me alone. Or I can just walk away right now. Either way, I am about to leave. Rias just kept smiling. We do not wish to fight you. I have a proposition for you, Naruto. You see, I witnessed your fight with that angel. I know he woke you up. So I was here to offer you a place to stay for the evening. No one would disturb you while you were at my residence. So some random girl and her friends just walk up to me on the street in the middle of the night and ask me to sleep at their house? Yeah, sorry girl, but no thanks. Go seduce someone else. Naruto took the left turn and began walking away from the intersection. As he did, he channeled some chakra and prepared for it. The group tried to attack him. Rias's pleasant smile disappeared as he turned his back to her. Her peerage stepped forward to stand by her. Prez, I will bring that guy back here right now if you want. He didn't look that tough. Rias laughed lightly. No, I don't think we will bother him again tonight, Issei. Besides, our offer did come across as rather suspicious, didn't it? A girl in the shadows watched the devil peerage agree to meet the next day before dispersing to their own houses. I guess that's one more offer he has turned down, NYA. Let's see him turn me down. A girl stepped onto the street and began following Naruto. A seductive smile crossed her lips and a mischievous gleam shone in her eyes. For Naruto, he was glad the group had shoved off. He really just wanted to get back to sleep. If he didn't find a hotel soon, well, the alleys were looking ever more comfortable. But again he felt a new presence behind him. Really close behind him. Naruto jumped forward. His hand darted inside his pouch and he palmed a kunai as he landed in a crouch. A woman who looked to be in her early 20s stood before him. Her outfit showed plenty of skin and her face said she knew he could see it. "Oh, hello there. That is a funny looking knife you have. I certainly hope you don't use it on me, NYA. NYA? The hell?" The girl face faltered. She quickly recovered and gave him a strange look. "NYA, you know, like a cat? NYA, NYA. What sort of cat says NYA? What a strange thing to be different about this dimension. Kurama, why don't cats go meow here? What sort of question is that, you idiot? How should I know?" The woman was looking at him like he was stupid. "Every cat says NYA. It is what cats say. Have you never seen a cat before of something?" Naruto sighed. This was starting to turn into one of his strangest nights. It would never top his strangest experience, but he doubted anything ever would. "Look, enough about cats. Why are you here? If you have nothing else to say, then just leave me alone." She stepped closer and pressed her exposed breasts together. "Your name is Naruto, right? Well, I guess you could say I am just a stray cat looking for a new home, NYA. Will you take me in? Please see, NYA." He stared at her deadpan. "Sorry, I am more of a fox person." Later, he disappeared in a flicker and Kuroka was left with only a swirl of leaves as company. She pouted before decided tonight was not a good time to keep pressing him. He had already been annoyed by most of the other factions. Naruto reappeared on top of one of the taller buildings in the area. "Fuck it, I am sleeping here." He channeled chakra into a small seal on his hip and a scroll poofed into his hand. He unsealed the scroll and his sleeping roll appeared. He was just laid down and his eyelids were half closed when another person decided to come find him. "Oh, I fucking swear you could be offering me free ramen to join your group right now and I would not care, so just fuck off." As he yelled the last part, he turned to see who it was this time. A young girl with long black hair stood before him dressed in some strange purple and black maid outfit. She had a blank expression as he yelled in her face and didn't seem to be bothered by it. Naruto was glaring at her. It could have been his mother, he really didn't care. He wanted to sleep right now. She smiled slightly and spoke. "It is good to see you, Naruto. I do not believe we have ever spoken before. However, I watched when you fought with Great Red 300 years ago. I must say I was very impressed. You seemed rather tired at that time as well. I apologize for waking you. TCH, you were that other person inside that big dragon's dimension? Well, whoop-de-doo. Go back there." She just kept smiling. "You are a rude person, are you not, Naruto?" "Yes, I think you are. However, that is not why I am here. I want to know if you plan to fight Great Red again." Naruto sighed and mumbled something under his breath. "If you won't let me through again, then I guess I will not have a choice this time either." "That's your answer, now leave." Blessed be his ramen, for she simply nodded and left. It was time to sleep. All across the city of Kuo the different groups and factions held council. Each had tried to speak with Naruto, but he rebuked all efforts. He did not appear to be an evil demonic beast who was about to bring about the apocalypse. But he did seem to be someone that you did not want to cross. A mistake Raphael had quickly committed. Only time would tell if there were repercussion for his reckless action. For the moment, everyone was still interested in recruiting him to their side. His power would easily allow one faction to rise to the pinnacle in terms of strength. To them it seemed a great change was on the horizon. Naruto's actions would change everything. Most of them hoped a war would not be initiated because of him. The general anxiety did not let most people sleep easily that night. Naruto himself had instantly nodded off when Ophis left him. Rias was reflecting over her encounter with the man. He had interrupted her and not let her introduce herself. They had nearly gotten into a fight. It made sense he would be wary after he had just been attacked. "Naruto Uzumaki, Such an odd name. It sounds sort of Japanese, but why would a biblical figure have a Japanese name? He had also quickly turned down her offer. This also made sense, their timing had been bad. And rather creepy. She sweat dropped. I suppose I should try a more direct approach. Yes, I will go out and find him tomorrow and ask him to join my peerage. Hee 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 hee. Ahem. Yes, I suppose it is time to sleep. She finished drying her hair and slipped beneath her silken sheets. She hugged a large plushie close and continued scheming till she was out. Wop 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 wop. What the hell? A sleepy Naruto was roused by the sound of something thudding against the air above him. The sun was high in the sky and beating down on him on the black flat-top roof. Above him a helicopter hovered. Naruto's enhanced hearing was being deafened as the helicopter lowered closer to him. He could just make out the sound of someone speaking. Hello and welcome, thanks for joining us on Bums of Kuo today. Today we have a rare find. This homeless fellow somehow has found himself a sleeping place atop this building in the eastern section of the city. Oh ho, we seem to have wakened this bum up. Let's zoom in and get up close up of his reaction. Naruto stared at the large metallic vehicle. It was somehow hovering in the air. He could see the large blades cycling around the thing and somehow keeping it airborne. This place has the wildest inventions. But why does it have to wake me up? Wait, the hell is that person saying? Bum? Oi, up there. I ain't no bum, y'all hear me? I ain't no bum. Damn these people. I'm outta here. He quickly rolled his bed up and in a poof of smoke sealed it back into the scroll. Still covered by the smoke, he sealed it into his wrist and body flickered off the roof, too quick for the camera to follow. When the smoke cleared, the myth of the magical Kuo bum was born. Grumbling about being woken, Naruto exited the alley he was in and walked onto the street. It was chow time and something was smelling great. He followed the scent to a store close by. He was really hoping to have an uninterrupted meal. However, he could feel the various people from yesterday active in the city. And oh, here they come. That group with the red-haired girl. For the log's sake. Why does no one here pick up on hints? Sighing, he wandered to the counter and ordered his meal. He quickly applied his illusion and walked away with his bag of breakfast sandwiches. I certainly don't want this girl who offered me a place to stay seeing me scam my way to free food. If she thinks I am just some weird charity case, she's got another thing coming. And here they were. Her and her group wandered right into the story. The two boys and a blonde-haired girl walked to the counter to order. While the redhead, a tall girl with a long black ponytail and a third shorter girl with shoulder-length white hair approached where he sat. Good morning, Naruto. Did you sleep well last night? He ignored her and took the final bite of his first sandwich. She did not seem bothered, so she pressed on. I did not get to say my name yesterday, so allow me to introduce myself. I am Rias Gremory, high-class devil and heiress to the Gremory clan. My friends here are my peerage. I had hoped you would have agreed to my offer last night so we might get to know one another. However, I now believe you to be the kind of person who prefers the direct approach. Will you join? What is a peerage? Naruto interrupted her speech. She momentarily was confused, but then she realized Naruto had been sealed before the evil peace system had even been created. Ah, a peerage is a group of people who have been reincarnated by a high-class devil and become their servants. The process turns you into a devil and binds you to me. However, I do not like to think of my peerage as servants. We are friends here. You may even see us as a family after a time. She saw him nod in understanding as he finished his third sandwich. As I was saying before you asked me your question, will you join my peerage? She had a very friendly smile on her face, Naruto noted. The two girls next to her also had overly happy smiles plastered to their faces. The shorter girl really seemed to be struggling in her attempt. He saw the blonde girl grinning as she spoke to the brown-haired boy at the counter. HMPH, you should have switched this short girl for the blonde. Your smile tactic doesn't work well with her. But the blonde, well damn, that's a nice smile. I like yours too, ponytail. But look here, Red, I can see your smile is forced too. You need more work on it. Oh dear, Prez, he seems to be onto us. The ponytailed girl giggled out. Before anyone else spoke, the three from the counter walked over. Look, Prez, I got you a sandwich. Here, eat up and enjoy. Oh well, thank you, Issei. As the group interacted, Naruto stared as his fifth and final sandwich. He had saved his favorite for last, but damn if he shouldn't have eaten it first. Now the atmosphere would lessen his enjoyment. Rias could see Naruto fixated on his sandwich and she eyed it curiously. Now that I think about it, everything must be really weird for him. He has been sealed for the last 300 years and so much has changed around the world since then. I wonder how he is coping with it all. Wait, he never answered me. Naruto, I don't mean to be pushy but I am going to ask again. Will you join my peerage? Look Red, I will say this once, fuck off and leave me alone. I want nothing to do with anyone in this dimension. I hope to never meet any of you again, bye. Half his sandwich hung out his mouth as he stuffed it in and did a quick body flicker outside the building. Looking around at the startled passers-by, he then went into a longer range jump and stopped halfway across the city. You should probably head outside the city to prepare, kid. The more time we spend here the more people will come our way. Naruto sighed for what must have been the 100th time since he had been freed. I know Kurama. It's time to get out of here. Shock marred everyone's face. Rias had never been turned down before. Granted, she had always meticulously planned all her other members joining. But she had not the time nor the resources to learn about Naruto. For him to turn her down and so rudely was quite the blow to her pride. Brother gave me that mutation piece. Surely he knew that Naruto would be released. He knows I need a stronger piece. So why didn't Naruto just join? Hey, guys, joining my peerage is a good thing, right? People would want to join, right? This guy just has some issue, right? Akeno looked at Rias. She had seen this coming a mile away. When Rias told her of the mutation piece, she knew Rias would start looking for some sort of magical destiny-powered event to occur for her to use the piece and snag a powerful new member. How Rias had been lucky enough to get all of them she really didn't know. The only one that she had done anything that remotely resembled work to acquire was Issei. And she had waited for him to die to do it. Oh dear, this was bound to happen at some point. At least it wasn't with someone we really had a chance of getting. The other members of the group were consoling Rias and assuring her they had loved joining. Akeno just quietly sighed. It was too bad. Naruto's overwhelming power had been a massive turn-on. What do you mean you don't know where she is? Sirzex yelled at one of his pawns. Last night he had tasked his peerage with keeping an eye on his sister. But apparently she had given them the slip this morning and he could sense her somewhere downtown. Shit, there is too much going on in the city right now for her to be in there. Go get a couple of the others and get her back here. Lord Sirzex, please relax. No one would think to attack Rias. They are all aware you and Lady Leviathan are in the city right now. Sirzex looked to Graphia and knew she was right. But his precious little sister could encounter Naruto. He did not seem outwardly hostile, but who knew what he would do. It was doubtful Naruto cared what anyone would think of his actions. And he probably didn't know any of the potential repercussions either. Sirzex was pacing. He wanted the others to arrive already. The four great Satans would be gathering to petition Naruto to their side later that day. He just hoped they could do it without being interrupted or beaten to the punch. The other factions were already all assembled. But the angels had little to no chance after Raphael's actions last night. And Azazel was always slow to act. They definitely still had a chance. Lord Azazel, the tracker says he is outside of the city. To the north in the forest, I would guess. Alright, let's head that way then, gentlemen. Azazel and his two comrades flapped into the air and took off flying northward. They quickly left the city airspace and followed the highway into the forest. A river snaked its way down from the surrounding mountains and crossed the highway a couple miles in. At this junction they veered off and followed the river upstream. We are getting closer. I think I see him. See that blonde speck atop the waterfall? Ah yes, good eyes Lord. It was Naruto, and as they approached they could see what he was doing. Meditating? They all wondered. They alighted on the spur of rock near him. Hello Naruto. I think we are meeting under better circumstances today. I hope you slept well. Naruto continued meditating and ignored him. Azazel looked around and noticed all the animals gathered. A serene sense of peace hung in the air. It was actually astounding. Typically the forests on Earth were dark and had a feeling of evil. Because of the malicious natural energy that flowed across the earth, Azazel repeated himself and this time got a reaction. Naruto furrowed his brows in annoyance and then snapped his right fingers once. Suddenly a duplicate copy of himself was kneeling down next to him. The copy's head snapped up and glared at them. "Yeah? Can I help you? The boss is kinda busy at the moment, so if you have nothing he would find important then leave." Azazel was really interested in the technique. Was it an illusion, a splitting technique, something else? He doubted he would find out. Back to business it seems. Ah, yes. I was curious to know if you would consider joining my group. We are very resourceful and can help you with anything you want. You are a powerful player Naruto and everyone wants to snag you. I offer you a more realistic outlook than what the angels preach, but a less disturbing one than that of the devils. Strength-wise my faction is stronger or on par with any of the other pantheons that exist, and the Yukai faction is so splintered and busy fighting among themselves you would have to do a lot of fighting. We, the Grigori, or as others like to call us the fallen angels, do request your friendship. The copy stared straight-faced through his speech, then moved between Azazel and the original body. He snickered then said, yeah sure, you can certainly talk a lot of nice words. Better than that girl could for sure. But I really don't care. Whether you think you are stronger than these pantheons or whatever. That means nothing to me. You were there last night when that guy attacked me, y'all? He seemed like he was pretty high up in one of these factions. I had no issue dealing with him. You guys could be the strongest faction for all I care. I thought I was pretty clear last night when I said not to follow me. I really doubt you three just happened to fly over here today. So let me warn you now. Leave me alone. You will not get a third chance. The copy began channeling its chakra and Azazel could see the faint wisp of blue energy flaring up. He took to the air and his comrades followed. He gestured placatingly with his hands. No, we are not trying to fight you. If this is how you feel then I will try to get others to leave you alone but I doubt I will accomplish much. Good day. HMPH might as well meditate myself. This world's natural energy is proving more troublesome than it's worth. I will just help the boss out. The faster we get this done, the faster we can get out of here and not get petitioned again. The clone spoke to itself as it sat down across from the boss. Then it closed its eyes and began drawing in the natural energy of the surroundings. The hate-filled energy was strong but Naruto was adept when it came to handling this sort of thing. This time he was going to pull out all the stops against that giant lizard. He would not be denied leaving again. This dimension is not his home. He had no responsibility towards it. Naruto stomped around the waterfall he had just been meditating at. He was trying to gather up some natural energy so he would be able to enter Sage mode and if necessary he could go the next level up. But it was like trying to swim upstream. The total concentration required to filter the hate out, then trying to mix it into Sage chakra and store it before repeating the process was dragging on. The sun was begging to set on the horizon and his stomach was rumbling. He had skipped lunch in the hope he was going to be eating dinner back home. But his body was now telling him what a stupid idea that had been. Thankfully no one else had approached him during the day. Perhaps that Asguy had actually warned them off. He shook his head. Doubtful. I will just leave a clone here overnight to keep making Sage chakra, then I will take what it's got and try and go home tomorrow. Time to go eat. He left the clone he had made earlier and jumped to the top of the nearby tree. The city was sparkling in the setting sun. The buildings shone with electricity and he flickered towards the city in several long jumps. Naruto came to a stop atop a large building towards the city's center. He could sense the various people around the city who used this dimension form of energy. It felt strange and much more fluid compared to the potent and heavy chakra everyone used back home. Come on, there has to be nearly double the number of them now. I swear if they interrupt this meal. He jumped off the building and landed lightly on the sidewalk, his chakra cushioning the impact force. A businessman looked at him and then decided he had better things to do than trying to figure this street magic out. He sensed most of the power signatures on the east side of the town, so he took a turn to the right and went west. There were only two this direction. Probably the strange girl who mispronounced cat speak, and some other lone wolf. He saw a small special of the day shop on the next corner and made his way over eagerly. Inside he got several courses and chowed down. Yes, he could almost weep tears. No one was moving in his direction. An uninterrupted meal. He was really hoping such good luck would hold out. Oh, yes, that hit the spot. Compliments to the chef I guess. Illusion. Hidden in plain sight. With the issue of paying over with he went up and refilled his drink before sitting down and thinking about what had happened since he was unsealed. It had been very surreal to learn that 300 years had passed instantly for him. Everything was so strange and different. He was able to go with the flow well enough, but this dimension was just something he wanted to be done with. He had his own problems to deal with, assuming they were still there to deal with when he got home. It might be a foolish hope, but I must return home. Heh, you are too stubborn, kid. Everything is probably different back home as well. It is not like we chose to come here either. We still have to Dia. Enough Kurama. I know the chances, but I can't contact the toads here, so the only way to find out is to go back myself. Naruto glanced at the door. Someone he recognized had just entered. She seemed to think he hadn't noticed her and started stalking towards him. When she was behind him, she jumped towards where he was sitting. She crashed hard against the table and looked up to see Naruto's hand stopping her from sliding off. He was sitting down on the opposite side of the table from before. His chin rested in his other hand as he looked at her with a bored expression. "Nya girl, what do you think you are doing?" She pouted and settled herself into the seat across from him. The customers around the store glanced oddly at her but did their best not to be caught staring. She rested her large bust atop her arms on the table and looked at Naruto pleadingly. "Naruto, that was mean. Why did you dodge?" He just stared at her with an "Are you serious?" expression, which she eventually relented to. "Alright. Look, I don't know exactly what it is you are planning to do now you are free. But I recently became a free agent myself. So what do y'all say? Me and you against the world? With your strength and my beauty we could take over anything we wanted." Her voice was finally serious for the first time since he met her, and he sighed. Her playful attitude had been a bit of fresh air among all the serious recruiters he had been dealing with. "No thanks. Now I will be taking my leave. Please don't follow me. If you keep insisting I will be more persuasive in my efforts to be rid of you." He stood up and walked towards the door. As he stepped out into the street he looked up and saw the moon rising over the city. "I was inside longer than I thought. Is she follow?" He jumped up and attached himself to the side of a large building next door. 3 lightning bolts crashed down into the street and a rumble of thunder rent the night air. 3 strong energy signatures suddenly popped up on Naruto's senses and he eyed the street warily. 3 huge people stood on the street. Their appearances kind of reminded him of the guy who had sealed him. "Don't tell me these guys are gods." One figure stood ahead of the others as they flanked him from behind. The 3 were twice the size of a normal human and their skin glowed faintly against the night air. Their power was rolling off them in waves. They clearly meant business. Naruto eyed them but did not move from his position. "Oi, can I help you lot? Or is this just a happy coincidence and I can be on my way?" The figure in front had a long-groomed silver beard. He was wearing a simple white toga pinned by a large circular medallion. He stepped forward and spoke. "You are the one called Naruto? Formerly thought to be the beast of the Apocalypse 666? I am Naruto Uzumaki," he said and dropped down from the building to stand several feet away from the trio. The figure with glowing blue hair that looked to be composed of writhing flames stepped up on his left. His skin was a ghostly white compared to the first figure's hardy golden color. His emaciated face stretched tightly as he spoke. "Come now, brother, we know he is the one we seek. Do not dawdle in your speech. It has been made clear this Naruto does not appreciate beating around the bush." The third figure stepped forward as well. A strange frill ran down his bald head backwards and his skin shone with a blue tint. His beard was speckled like a mix of salt and pepper. Naruto chose to ignore the green seaweed hanging from it. "Hades, Zeus, let us focus on the matter at hand. Do not squabble with one another." The well-groomed man at the front nodded his head and cleared his throat. Yes, Poseidon. Now Naruto, we are the 3 brothers of the ancient Greek pantheon. We are elder gods and we are here to request your help. A former ally of ours has recently begun to try and break our friendship. We believe they are going to start a war between us. We are near even matches for one another and the fallout from our fights threatens the balance of many things. We request your assistance to mediate this debacle. Or at the very least side with us and stop this before any large-scale fighting can break out. What do you say, will you assist us?" Naruto stared at the 3. So much for his luck today. Why can't anyone work out their own shit in this dimension? Well, I can't say I am interested. You see, I am very busy and I do not have time to go around and deal with others' problems. So why don't you guys just zap back into the sky and have a nice evening? The large figure in the middle sputtered and his face began to redden. "Boy, do not test me. I asked you, The frill-headed one grabbed the angry one and silenced him. Brother, we cannot force him to fight for us. Allow me. Ahem. Naruto, we are really not asking for much from you. We are willing to reward you richly for your efforts. Do you not wish to live as a god and eat till your heart's content of our sweet ambrosia? Naruto snorted, then glanced towards the shop he ate at and saw the cat girl poking her head out from behind the door. She looked very surprised at the three's arrival. Look, I don't care one way or another for any of your rewards. I don't want your lifestyle or your food. You know why? I have my own lifestyle and my own food. It is truly the food of the gods, and when I get back home I am going to eat till I burst. So what do I care for your meager offers? He looked at their flabbergasted faces and withheld a small chuckle. Then he saw the sheet white face of cat girl and winked at her. 3, 2, 1? How dare you fool? I shall smight. I never liked ambrosia much either. The three gods spoke simultaneously. The curious blue fire-haired man did not seem to be offended by Naruto like the other two were. The middle one stepped forward slightly more and slammed his large fist against his chest. Boy, I am Zeus, Lord of the Sky and God of Thunder. You dare to refuse me and speak so insolently? The biblical God may have been unable to handle you properly. But I shall correct his mistake. Kneel and suffer for your foolishness. Lightning sparked into his palm and several large bolts were quickly hurled toward Naruto. The shot forward at an extreme pace and Naruto swung his palm out and batted the glowing yellow projectiles off course. They smashed into the buildings behind him and exploded in a shower of sparks. Naruto did not take the time to examine the damage and was already rushing towards the trio. His chakra roared through his coils and his hands quickly sped through a series of seals. Lava release. Melted earth. He spoke quietly and the ground beneath the gods exploded and oozed forth globs of molten earth. They jumped free and split across the sky. Naruto let a vicious grin cross his face and accelerated toward the now separate Zeus. A large burst of chakra coated his fist and he smashed the god across the face. A resounding bang blasted across the night air and Zeus rocketed into the paved road below. His body smashed a huge crater and there were no immediate signs of him getting back up. Naruto turned and looked at the other two. He spoke as a cold, harsh tone. Do not challenge me. Leave now. If you try to attack me a second time, I promise you there will not be a third chance. His voice boomed with power as he used some of Kurama's chakra to add that little extra touch of intimidation. The flame-haired one, Hades he believed Frill-head or Poseidon called him, answered him. You think we are scared by a show of power? We are the elder gods of one of the ancient pantheons. We have fought countless powerful foes. You were defeated by one god. Do not presume to fight the three of us. Zeus was blinded by his anger. We will not be. Down on the street Kuroka stared wide-eyed. She knew Naruto was powerful. To have fought and lived against Great Red, nothing less than godly power would be expected. But he had apparently just knocked Zeus out with a single blow. Not to mention his ability to control lava. Hades and Poseidon both summoned their power and their auras came to life around them. Ghostly blue flames licked against Hades' skin while flowing blue waves seemed to wash around Poseidon. Poseidon summoned a trident and Hades drew out a black two-pronged pitchfork. Then a tremendous crack echoed across the street as Zeus busted out of his crater and took his place among his brothers. A larger golden aura sparked around him. A blinding golden bolt of energy filled his hand. Naruto sighed in his head. What a setback. Naruto quickly drew in some of the natural energy around him and refined it into a minuscule amount of sage chakra. He used this to jump right in his six paths sage mode. To the observers, one moment Naruto had closed his eyes in concentration, then he had disappeared. His six paths senjutsu power fist smashed into Poseidon. The power directly cutting through his life force as the physical strength overwhelmed his godly body and pulped his head. A spray of red mist exploded in every direction, but Naruto was already moving again. A black chakra rod sprung into his hand as his truth-seeking ball responded to his command. He swung the rod and it obliterated Hades' battle fork and carved a line of dust through the god's chest. Naruto then was upon Zeus. His chakra rod was simply jabbed forward and the elder god of the Greek pantheon found his famous thunderbolt disintegrated as his heart was turned to dust and he fell from the sky. The three bodies smashed into the ground at the same time. Naruto had killed them all within an instant. He would never hesitate or give a godlike being a chance again. He had already made this mistake twice now. He had a policy of never giving anything a third chance. To Kuroko, one moment Naruto had been about to engage in a titanic battle against 3 gods. 3 gods. But then he shut his eyes. The instant after his eyes shut, she felt it. Her death was before her. She could see Naruto hovering over her dead corpse, his face blank as he looked at her with an icy stare. She was overcome with terror, and suddenly she found herself back on the ground outside the diner. Looking up, she saw the 3 gods falling. Poseidon's head was gone. Zeus's chest was a gaping hole, and Hades seemed to have been cut in half. Naruto was hovering there, but his aura was completely different. His clothing was slightly different, and he now wore a glowing golden coat. His shoes and hair glowed with the same overwhelming intensity. She felt like an ant before its maker. She had felt godlike auras before. But Naruto's current aura eclipsed anything she believed possible. His strength was beyond anything a god could hope to achieve. Was Great Red this powerful? How had he defeated Naruto before? The 3 gods' bodies hit the road and Naruto glanced down at the sound. Without noise, he swept his arm towards them and 3 black balls shot out. One struck each corpse and Kuroko watched as they evaporated into dust. A breeze blew by and the 3 elder gods of the Greek pantheon were no more. Annihilated in an instant by this one man. He turned his gaze towards Kuroko, and the fierce power in his gaze forced her to shrink as small as possible and tremble before him. Naruto observed her and wondered what to do. He could kill her, but she had never been hostile towards him. Rather, she chased after him like a stray cat looking for a new owner. He sighed. His 6 paths sage mode extinguished and Naruto hung there in the sky. Kuroko, I want you to let this be known. I have already given plenty of people here a second chance. If anyone comes towards me again, I will kill them. Do you people not understand what I mean when I say leave me alone? Naruto turned his back and disappeared. Several leaves spiraled down from his place in the sky and Kuroko just sat there and stared wide-eyed. Naruto changed things. His power, his existence, it was terrifying. But what truly scared her was she had no idea what he would do next. Kuroko was still standing the street when the others arrived. Athena, Apollo, Artemis, Aphrodite, Hera, Demeter, Dionysus, Hermes, Hypnos, Nike, Janus, Nemesis, Iris, Hecate, and Tyche. The horde of ancient Greek deities all appeared in a blinding flash of golden light. Hera stepped forward and spoke. Girl, where is my husband? Where are his brothers? Her voice was enchanting and Kuroko felt drawn to answer the beautiful woman. The other gods were gathered around the craters the trio of brother had fallen into. Kuroko opened her mouth to answer, but a streak of ruddy light flashed across the sky and a rusty red figure smashed into the ground. His landing shook the ground and Kuroko glanced and saw the imposing visage of Ares, the ancient Greek god of war and one of the strongest beings in existence. He snarled and spoke. Where is Hephaestus? Don't tell me the old fool is still in his smithy? Does he not feel the absence? His speech was quick and rough. A huge contrast to Hera's calm silky voice. But his question was not directed at Kuroko, so she snapped her mouth shut and stayed silent. Hera turned towards the newest arrival. She seemed indifferent to his tone. Ares, dear, you know Hephaestus has some very important work at the moment. Zeus was firm in his command that he not leave for anything. Ares snorted and walked over to the closest crater and pushed Hermes aside to get a closer look. Hera turned back to Kuroko and looked expectantly at her. Lady Hera, you husband and his brothers, they're dead. The surrounding gods flinched at the words and Hera stepped towards her threateningly. Her aura was bubbling just beneath her skin and her gaze was venomous. When she spoke, her tone cut across the night air like a whip. Do you dare lie to me? My husband and his brothers could not have all been killed at the speed their signatures disappeared. Speak truly, what happened? Her commanding aura forced Kuroko to her knees. She breathed heavily and looked towards the angered goddess. She really didn't like dealing with gods. Lady Hera, I spoke no falsehood. The being known as 666 was talking with the brothers. I was not close enough to hear what they said. But they clearly did not reach an agreement and 666 flared his power. More words were exchanged and then the brothers summoned their strength. But 666 powered up further and within several seconds he slew them and turned their bodies to dust. Kuroka fixed her gaze to the floor and hoped they wouldn't kill the messenger. But suddenly a second set of godly beings appeared. Their arrival was covered in ethereal golden light as well. Kuroka looked and gulped at what she saw. Oh, what do we have here, I wonder? I sensed old man Zeus and his brothers in a fight, but I don't see them, nor do I sense them any further. Could it be they were killed? The arrival froze the Greek gods and they all suppressed a chilling shiver in their spines. Ares stepped forward to meet the arrivals. Scum, what are you doing here? Kuroka could feel his power bubbling and she knew a fight was about to break out. The bad blood between these two groups went back to their very origins. Seeing the gods were focused on one another, she quickly slinked her way down the street and away from the impending fight. She could clearly hear one more sentence before she was out of earshot. You dare, Ares? You are nothing but a shitty weak god of war. Mars, am everything you wished you could be. Speak again and you will die trash. Wow, that is a lot of gods. Naruto had just checked into an average hotel on the other side of the city. But the mass appearance of so many gods had him on edge. Naturally, he knew his actions would attract a lot of others. But he really did not want to be involved in anything further. Hopefully they will just leave me alone. Kurama snorted. There is no way you are going to get to sleep tonight. Just accept it and head into the dimensional gap already. Naruto sighed. What Kurama said was true. He wasn't likely to be left alone as long as he stayed within this dimension. But he was not yet ready to head back. His chakra had not fully replenished. And what lay in wait for him would require his full strength. So he had been killing time within the city as he recuperated. The powers all flared up and a fight was clearly brewing. Naruto could clearly sense that the second group of arrivals were stronger. Well, he had probably killed the big hitters for the first group. The speed they reacted with was probably due to their connection with the three he killed. But he shrugged his shoulders and a clone popped up next to him. They nodded to one another and Naruto lay down to try and sleep as much as possible while the clone went to sit alert in the room's chair. He somehow doubted he would get a full night's rest. Holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. Issei, don't shout. We really don't want to attract attention. Rias admonished her panicking pawn. His reaction was how the entire group felt. Issei was just the most expressive of the bunch and his over-the-top freaking out was not helping anyone. Rias and her peerage stood atop the roof of their club room. Sona and her peerage were standing across from them atop the school roof. When Rias had felt the divine power spiking along with Naruto's, she had quickly called her peerage together. Something was happening and she did not want one of them to get caught in the crossfire. When several dozen gods popped into the city, her peerage members had all stiffened and tried to maintain their composure. Where is Big Brother when you need him? Sona said she contacted her sister. But brother didn't answer my message. This is not a time to be busy. Not half a minute later a large red magic circle appeared on the school lawn below them. Sirzek's personal crest was highlighted inside the pentagram. Before the circle could finish materializing, a second large circle popped up and began etching out a large blue pentagram. Seraphel's crest shone brightly from the middle. Rias and Sona dropped down to greet their arriving siblings. In a flash of red light, Sirzek and his entire peerage appeared grouped over the magical circle. Seraphel's peerage followed a moment later in a flash of blue. Sirzek was already crushing Rias in a tight hug before anyone could speak. Oh Rias, you're alright. I was so worried when I felt the divine beings flare their power in Kuo. But it seems to have gotten even worse than several moments ago. His voice was high and sounded whining, but Rias just smiled at her brother's antics. But then he spun and his voice hardened as he voiced a command. Beowulf, go scout. I want to know exactly what is happening. He was extremely glad to see his sister was unharmed, but now he needed to make sure she stayed that way. Seraphel had just hugged her sister and now the two Satans made eye contact and a quick nod from Seraphel told him what he needed to know. Rias, take your peerage and go with Sona back to the underworld. It is not safe for you to stay in Kuo right now. Rias stared at her brother in shock. This was something that could change the world. No way was she not going to at least have a front row seat. She mustered up every ounce of sisterly charm she possessed and pulled her lips into a pout. Boot brute ear. I wanna stay. I wanna watch. Please let me stay. Under the assault of the cute attack, Sirzek felt his willpower crumbling. But his wife had seen this occurrence coming and Circex had requested she help him out when it happened. So Graphia strode over and bonked Circex atop the head. Lord Lucifer, now is not the time to be second-guessing orders. Rheus listened to your brother's orders and returned to the underworld. You do not have a choice in the matter. Now Lord Lucifer, Lady Leviathan, we should head closer in case we need to act with haste. The matter was settled in her head and she threw Circex over her shoulder and popped her wings out. Cirzex's peerage followed her into the sky, and after Seraphel had scolded Sona she likewise followed them up. The glint from Sona's glasses caught Rheus's eyes and they both smugly looked at one another as they simultaneously agreed to follow as well. You dare call me trash, Mars? Say one more thing and I will spit you upon my spear. Your guts will stain the street red. 1,000 punishments will be wrought upon your mother and your father will become my personal servant. I am Ares. Hera was eyeing the arrivals wearily. And when her son started arguing with his counterpart she knew she needed to defuse the situation. She stepped forward and blocked Ares off. She glared at him, then turned her head and politely nodded her head towards her counterpart. Lords and ladies of the Roman pantheon, good evening. My son is as unruly as ever, please ignore his earlier remarks. Now I wish to inquire as to the reason you have arrived here at this time? A huge figure stepped forward. He stood taller than everyone there. A giant glowing man adorned in gold finery and silk clothing. His torso was bare and he carried a large wooden staff. His laughing voice boomed out. Hera, Hera, Hera. I think you know why we are here. Your lords have fallen. The enmity between our pantheons has been rising as of late, has it not? In fact, a little bird has told me the reason behind Zeus's visit here. He was trying to acquire someone to fight for your pantheon. He sought our destruction, but his death was all he received. Now we come to finish the task which 666 left unfinished. Mars quickly jumped over his father Jupiter, and a bloody golden spear appeared in his hands. For the last time you have insulted me, trash. Die. At his exclamation the surrounding gods all channeled their power. Every single Greek god present had a Roman counterpart. The number would normally be even. But the Greeks were without their 3 big hitters. Hephaestus was also not present. Outnumbered, things looked grim for them. Ares materialized his spear and shield and in a blur of motion clashed against Mars. Theirs was an ancient rivalry. Ares had always been viewed as an evil god of war, one who brought destruction, while Mars was viewed as a great hero and one to pray for victory to. This fundamental difference greatly affected their power. Mars was the recipient of the prayers from the vast Roman legions, while Ares was spoken of in scorn. Prayer boosted a god's power. So as the 2 gods of war clashed, Ares was thrown back. He grunted and instantly they clashed again. Back and forth they blocked stabs and returned jabs. Shockwaves echoed from each hit and the surrounding buildings were crumbling beneath the force. The shattered windows rained glass on the street. Hera watched her son fighting his rival evenly but knew the stalemate would not last. She turned to look at the other Greek gods. Brothers and sisters, I have lived a long life as your queen. From the time we won our freedom off the Titans till now I am glad to have spent this life in your company. But we can no longer run from this conflict. Without Zeus we stand no chance. But let us bring wrath to this world one final time. Let our power sing across the land and our voices shout their final war cries. Our pantheon will not silently go into the void. So take up arms with me and let us cripple this arrogant upstart group of gods. Hera exploded into a whirlwind of power. A large golden aura framed her against the night sky. She turned towards the Roman gods. Her arm raised and her finger pointed. Juno, you self-righteous bitch. Today I shall take your soul into the void alongside my own. The sound barrier shattered as she rocketed forward. Her entire essence channeled into a single blow. Hera smote her counterpart right across the chest. A tremendous cracking sound resulting from the blow was barely heard over the din Ares and Mars were making. Across the line each god sized up their counterpart. The taunts rang out back and forth and the Greeks charged in following their queen. But with that split-second delay from watching Hera, the Romans were now prepared. Demeter met Ceres, Athena struck at Minerva, Artemis fired her bow towards Diana, and Aphrodite met Venus in a struggle of magical blasts. Hermes and Mercury could be seen zipping back and forth in a quick flurry of knife strikes. Dionysus had challenged Bacchus to a drinking contest. Hypnos and Somnus had declared a staring contest. The promise to slit their own throat should they blink had not needed to be mentioned. Nike and Victoria were in the middle of a race between one another. Iris and Arcus clashed in a dazzling rainbow display. Their staves sparked brilliantly as they struck back and forth. Taish and Fortuna were betting on the different outcomes between the fighting gods. The victor would claim the other's life. But there were a handful on each side who had no counterpart. With Zeus dead, Jupiter could easily wander around the battlefield and overwhelming the fighting deities. But he had Neptune, Pluto and Vulcan flanking him as he approached the unmatched Greeks. Apollo, Janus, and Hecate, you three know what I am here to ask. Originally you abandoned the Greek pantheon to join us and continue being worshipped. I will ask you just this once. Come back again or perish where you stand. His voice boomed with power as he spoke to them. Hecate flourished the two torches she held and her voice whispered out from beneath her hood. Of course, Lord Jupiter, it is not my time to perish. I shall reclaim my position within your hall. Janus was muttering back and forth with himself and both groups were ignoring him while Jupiter looked toward Apollo. Apollo's handsome face grinned brilliantly and he gave a thumbs up. You know me, Jupiter, I would never miss a chance to keep on shining. Count me back on your team. But you might as well just kill Janus. He will never come to a decision. It's kind of his thing, ya know? Jupiter laughed heartily and a lightning bolt flashed from his hands and blew a gaping hole through Janus's chest. The two-faced god slowly fell backward as his golden ichor splattered the ground below in a shimmering rain. Turning back to the fighting, Jupiter observed the battles. Hera had joined in several other fights and managed to double-team Ceres. She had come up behind Somnus and slit his throat. Currently she was assisting Ares' battered form with Mars. But everywhere else the Greek counterparts lay slain on the ground. Once half the Greeks had been defeated, even Fortuna had taken Taish's head. This conflict had an obvious winner and they needed not wait on the final fights to determine a clear winner. Jupiter laughed. Only Hera and Ares were still breathing. He zipped forward and cut off Mars' death blow. You think you have accomplished something with your defiance, Hera? Well, look around you. The surrounding city of Kuo was burning. Over half the city lay in ruin and buildings were burning everywhere. The citizens had fled when the fighting broke out, but charred corpses were flung all about. The worst part of it all to Hera was that with Pluto still alive and at 100%, it was likely he could resurrect the slain Roman gods. His power over the realm of death was strong and he probably had already caught their dispersing souls and was preparing to merge them back together with their bodies. Hera looked down at the bleeding form of her son. Ares had always been a handful, but she did not want to see him die. Certainly not like this. Golden ichor spilled in the ever-expanding puddle around her. She wanted to weep for the fate her pantheon had suffered. But her dignity would not allow it. Jupiter turned to look at the counterpart of his wife. He chuckled to himself. This fight had been building up for hundreds of years. They were ancient enemies and both had always wanted to eliminate the other. He had never imagined it would have been so easy. He had always imagined slaying Zeus after a titanic battle that shook the heavens and earth. Among huge craters and bubbling spouts of lava, he would look down on the battered form of his rival. Rain would be beating down all around him and a flash of lightning would strike down towards them. He would catch the bolt and use the very element both he and Zeus controlled to deal the finishing blow. But instead his rival and the other two brother of the three great Grecian gods were slain by an anomaly. A being who was stated as the bringer of the apocalypse. He stepped forward and without ceremony his arm shot out in a blur and with a crackle of lightning Hera's head was removed. A second movement and Ares' heart lay splattered on the concrete as a bloody golden paste. Truly 666 had taken his moment of triumph from him. In a fight between the gods such a loss had immediately spelled the doom of the Greeks. He sighed and turned towards his comrades. Vulcan, go to Olympus and do what you have always wanted. When you have slain Hephaestus, destroy everything. He restrained himself from a great victory speech. He had long since perfected what he wanted to say. With Zeus's head in his palm he would crow in victory and deliver a great recount of all the past wrongs the Greeks had dealt them. But he felt it in bad taste. He truly had no sense of accomplishment now. The ground rumbled slightly and in a flash of golden light the assembled gods vanished. Ceres hung in the air 10 miles away from the fighting. Any closer could be deemed as their intent to interfere. Beowulf had returned just as they were leaving the school to report the situation. When Circex heard he had dispatched Beowulf to the underworld, he needed to start assembling the various devils to arms. Whether they would be involved in any coming conflicts didn't matter. The likelihood was high and they could not afford to be caught unprepared. Seraphel and he had watched with grave expressions. The collateral damage any time the gods met in a clash was immense. Some of the shockwaves threatened to knock him from the air. He had summoned a barrier to protect his peerage from the pressure being exerted. The factions had not even fought for an hour and the fight had been decided. A powerful faction was completely annihilated in a single night. All because Naruto had thrown off the balance. Why had Naruto killed the three gods? Would he kill anyone else? Unanswerable questions currently. Seraphel spoke up. This is a serious event. With the Romans now unopposed by the Greeks, their influence will start destroying the delicate balance between all the various factions. Circex couldn't help but chuckle. Yeah, the Greek and Romans couldn't help but purposefully oppose each other on every matter large or small. The factions the Greeks supported must be freaking out right now. Seraphel looked at Circex incredulously. You know the Greeks were on good terms with us, right? The Romans were close with the fallen angels. That's half the reason they were able to get so much land in the underworld. Circex's smile fell from his face. Foreign relations was not his forte. He dealt with public morale and day-to-day operations of the devil faction. Well shit. Everyone grouped around him couldn't help but agree. All across the world and in the various attached dimension, prophets, oracles, shamans, seers, visionaries, dream walkers, and fortune tellers spoke the same words at the same time. The hourglass has run dry. Great change is upon us. Beware, the apocalypse is nigh. Naruto was up and out the door the moment his clone was about to move and wake him. He had been just about to fall asleep when his senses registered the massive spiking power. These psycho assholes. Who the hell fights in a city like this? I thought they would have moved. He was outside the hotel now and his hands shot towards his chest as his fingers came together in a cross-shaped seal. Wordlessly, several hundred shadow clones came into being. They shot off in every direction as soon as they touched the ground. In the center of the city, Ares and Mars were currently fighting and Hera had just jumped over and struck Juno. The fighting was quickly escalating and there were still a lot more gods to add to the fray. They clearly did not care for the human life around them. His power was as suppressed as he could make it as he moved silently across the rooftops. Every time he stopped a body flicker, 100 more clones bloomed away from him. His goal was simple: rescue anyone he could. Already he'd moved several thousand people to the outskirts of the town. But the all-out melee in the center of the city was escalating and high-power attacks were being thrown around in every direction. Naruto kept his emotions calm, but he sighed at the pointless waste of life. At the moment, Naruto did not feel inclined to interrupt the fighting. Those who such an action could have saved were already lost. The pressure and errant power had crushed and slain those in the immediate vicinity. There were now at least 2,000 clones spread across the city, ferrying the civilians out of the city. But a city the size of Kuo had at least 200,000 people. A Hirishin marker was placed by the first clone to reach the outskirts of the city, and each clone was popping there with each citizen they found, only to reappear where they had just been, having set up a local marker. Using this method, thousands of people were already grouping outside the city. But the gods were still escalating their violence. As long as the heavy hitters stay out of the fight, the city should remain mostly intact. Another large explosion destroyed an office building near him. The embers peppered the surrounding buildings and another city block was set aflame. He looked over towards the fighting and saw dozens of shockwaves surging out from impacts as the gods fought. The sonic booms constantly cracked across the night sky. The sound of citizens screaming was silenced as a clone transported them out of the way. Should I step into the fight? These guys won't all be caught flat-footed like the three from before. I would probably cause some crazy collateral. Kurama, what do you think? Hey, who cares? Even if you feel compelled to stop their fighting, the damage is already done, and who knows how much more damage they would inflict to try and kill you. None of this matters, Naruto. You know my stance, we need to get back home. No answer came from the blonde, and Kurama spoke no further on the matter. His opinion was out there, what Naruto did was up to him. Before he could decide, however, the fighting stopped. A huge figure beheading a kneeling woman and a different god shot upwards into the inky night sky. Then as when the other gods vanished, the city fell into silence. The only sound to be heard was the crackling of flames. The clones began popping once they realized the citizens were safe. As the info flooded his mind, Naruto paid it no attention and let it mix into his collective experience. From the center of a huge crater he surveyed the city and took note of the extensive damage. He shook his head and vanished into the shadows of an alley. The city meant nothing to him, the destruction was nothing to him. The death, all of it meant nothing. He had seen much worse. Lord Rizavam, 666, has caused an unbalance between the Greeks and Romans. He slew Zeus, Hades, and Poseidon. The Romans quickly capitalized and wiped out the remaining Greeks. Rizavam spun around in his red-cushioned armchair. His fingers were steepled together as he viewed the random servants kneeling before him. His right eyebrow rose as he spoke. "Oh, 666 is quite interesting, isn't he?" His question was rhetorical and the servant dared not answer. "No matter, go and fetch Euclid." The servant quickly stood and bowed before striding from the room in haste. Lord Rizavam was well known in his castle for killing servants who stayed longer than he wanted. "Come now, 666. Why are you still wasting time in the human world? Do you not wish to fight your way past Great Red and out of these connected dimensions? Why must you delay my adventure?" Sitting in his comfortable chair, he could do nothing but wait. Everything rested on 666 to fight Great Red. It didn't even matter if 666 was able to win. He just needed to keep Great Red busy long enough for Rizavam to make his move. In the dimensional gap, Great Red flew yet another circle around Ophis. He had been doing this ever since Naruto had been unsealed. His deep booming voice was constantly repeating the same question. But Ophis had been unable to answer him the first time, and now when he asked for the millionth time she still remained silent. "Come on, Ophis. When is he coming? Huh? When is that guy coming back? He better be at 100% this time. He was way too easy to beat last time." "Oh?" He said something else. "I guess I shall respond." The small dark-haired girl turned from facing the endless void and stared at the circling dragon. He was barely alive at the time. Even witnessing his wounds rapidly healing, one could still ascertain that his life was hanging in the balance. Yet you struck him from behind, and when he turned to fight, you blew a great cone of fire onto him. His survival was impressive, but then he fled to the human dimension. "I imagine you are unsatisfied with the previous encounter?" "Huh? Unsatisfied? The guy was nearly dead and he still survived my strike and my flames. I am anything but unsatisfied. I am beyond thrilled. He survived that. In such a state even you would have died. Yet he survived. Just imagine what he will be capable of when he meets me in battle. But damn, when is he coming?" Ophis merely stared blankly. She still did not have an answer, so she would just keep waiting. That? Rias, what just happened?" Issei's frank question had the entire room's attention. Sona and her peerage were in attendance and the occult research club room was getting cramped as they mixed in with her peerage. She looked at her pawn and took a moment to gather her thoughts. Rias then spoke a minute later. "Well, from what I saw, it seemed to be the ancient Roman gods fighting and killing the ancient Greek gods. They seem to have destroyed a huge portion of Kuo and likely killed most of the inhabitants. As to why this happened, I can only guess." Her tone was dull and her speech to the point. It held none of her usual sugary happiness. The shock from early had not yet worn off. Issei just nodded his head dumbly. The words bounced around inside his head as he was having trouble connecting her statement to reality. Sona cleared her throat from her seat on one of the couches. When she spoke, it was with her usual bland monotone. "Why this has happened is anyone's guess at the moment. But I suspect Naruto played a large role in this evening's events. His unique energy signature was easy to feel when he flared his strength prior to all the gods arriving." Several people around the room nodded their heads in agreement. 15 minutes passed silently as the group was lost in thought. Soon the sun would start to peek over the horizon as several early birds chirped outside the window. The peaceful silence was suddenly disturbed as several people barged into the room. "Reis, why are you still here? I told you to return to the underworld." Her brother looked stern and his tone held no room for arguing. But as Rias looked towards Sirzex, he quickly softened his gaze as he noticed her distress. She was clearly a bit shaken up from the battle. The pressure alone would have been a shock to her system. Luckily no one from her peerage had been caught in the crossfire. So she should get over her shock soon. Sirzex had paused for a second when he caught sight of Rias. But Seraphel had sped up and rocketed towards her younger sister. Sona had a rare smile on her face as her sister fussed over her. Seraphel, I'm fine. Please get off me. Seraphel gasped. Sona, don't treat me so. I was just worried about you and so it's only natural that I would fuss for a bit when I see you. So just sit there and deal with it, Missy. Magical girl Levia will make it all better, so let her use her healing hug on you for just a while longer. Issei just stared as Seraphel rubbed herself all over Sona. But his gaze was drawn away when he saw Sirzex rapidly shaking Rias. As he yelled something about shaking her out of shock. It may or may not have been working, but Issei was too focused on her chest as it shook freely around. Akeno sighed at their antics and Asia quickly moved to talk with Issei about something. Kaneko was trying to comfort Gasper and Kiba was just standing next to the window gazing out at the sunrise. Sona's peerage was clustered around the two sisters. Graphia, who had entered unnoticed, stood near her. Oh, hello there, Lady Graphia. I didn't notice your entry. Are you well this early morning? Graphia turned to face the young queen and decided to ignore her husband's antics. Greetings, Akeno. I am doing well, but I believe young Lady Rias is not doing well. So I shall prepare an early breakfast. A good meal always helps. Graphia turned on her heels and moved further into the clubroom. Akeno hummed to herself and glanced around the room once more to find everyone still engaged in their actions. So she decided to follow the older woman to the kitchen in the back. A vertical black slit distorted the air as it suddenly appeared. It was hard to see against the grayish-black backdrop that made up the dimensional gap. When the rift measured over 6 feet in height, a head of sunny blonde hair poked through the faint rift as Naruto exited the portal. Naruto glanced around as the hole closed behind him. Everywhere he looked, the horizon seemed to stretch endlessly, yet at the same time it seemed to be a fuzzy mist of darkness. Like a fog hung at the edge of his vision. Depth perception within the dimensional gap's void was greatly skewed. Naruto did not need to see where he was going, however. There were 2 energy signatures within this void and they were far away somewhere on his right. A strange attraction drew his gaze towards the horizon over his left shoulder. This feeling of being drawn in that direction was what Naruto was looking for. A special rift existed in that direction. This rift would allow him to leave this dimensional cluster and access the greater dimensional network. Previously he had appeared in this space. His exit had been dizzying and his sense of balance was greatly skewed. As he floated in the nothingness, he had extended his senses to examine his surroundings. Only to be blindsided by a powerful strike. Following the strike, a great tongue of yellow flame had washed over him. Instinctively his body had shielded him from the brunt of the damage, but the powerful flame had left a mark. Naruto was even further wounded than when he came through the last portal, so he quickly ripped open a portal and jumped through it to safety. Or so he had hoped at the time. Somehow he had been cast from the greater network through a connecting tunnel and into this cluster of dimensions. Compared to the last time he was within this murky dimension, his strength and condition were far greater. Now nearly at full strength, Naruto had no plans of being snuck up on or being delayed from getting home. He turned mid-air and channeled his chakra to propel him forward. At the same time he kept track of the 2 signatures now moving his direction. It was going to be close whether he would make it to the rift before they reached him. Just turn and fight them, Naruto. We can't afford to blitz our entire reserve just to leave this dimension. We are going to need everything we can get when we get home. Naruto said nothing to acknowledge Kurama's statement. But the large fox knew his container heeded his advice when Naruto slowed his pace slightly so that he was currently generating chakra faster than he used it to travel. After several more minutes of flying through the void, his pursuers caught up. A deep voice reverberated through the dead air. Hey, bro, why are you flying away? Are you not here to fight me properly this time? This fight is going to be a good one, I can tell. A strange glint shined in the dragon's massive black eyes. His tone was playful, but his suffocating intent showed through as he tried to force Naruto's surrender through bloodlust. Naruto just sighed and turned to face the creature. The sight of a small girl wearing a frilly purple dress actually managed to catch him off guard for a moment. Not that anyone would ever know. Professional ninja did not get caught off guard. Look, I am just trying to leave. So don't bother me and I won't bother you. The killing intent was massive, but Naruto was not cowed by it. He had truly faced far worse before. He had not the time or inclination to tangle with this beast. But the thought was not reciprocated. A deep booming laugh came from the dragon's throat. Leave you alone? No, I don't think so. You will fight me and this time you will not escape. Trespasser, you do not belong here. The beast lunged forward. His mouth snapped where Naruto had been a second earlier. A dozen clones sprang to life surrounding the dragon, and as one they silently fired off a huge combo of fire and wind techniques. The hellstorm raged against the dragon's scales, but Great Red took no damage. He span swiftly and his tail whipped out and managed to dispel half the clones. Great Red roared his displeasure at killing fakes and turned towards the remaining group of Narutos. His jaw snapped open and a swirling cone of bright flames burst forth. Great Red swept the inferno horizontally and the remaining clones popped as they got caught. But the real Naruto hovered above the dragon's head. His eyes narrowed in annoyance. He'd wanted the clones to distract the dragon while he made it to the exit. But it seemed they would not be capable of delaying it for long enough. He would have to cripple or kill the dragon to make his move. A large swirling Rasengan gathered over his right palm. A visible white tinge colored the edge as a high-pitched drone cut across the silence of the void. 4 rotating blades appeared around the central ball. The shuriken-like vortex moved back as Naruto drew his arm back to aim. In a blur his arm descended and the ball was whipped towards the dragon's exposed back. Ophis watched silently as Great Red destroyed the copies and she saw what she assumed to be the real one floating overhead. When he summoned a swirling ball of energy and threw it, she wondered what effect it would have. The high-pitched whine alerted Great Red of the approaching attack, but his bulk counted against him as the attack clipped one of his wings as he tried to dive away. A storm of microscopic wind blades erupted in a cortex of white light. A shockwave blew Ophis's hair wildly around her head as she viewed the destructive power of the attack. Great Red's left wing was completely pulped to the joint. Fleshy blobs scattered in every direction and the great dragon roared in pain. What the fuck was that? Bro, I am gonna kill you for that one. A sickening squelching noise sounded as a bone pierced out of Great Red's back and the muscles of the wing sprouted out from the growing bone. Like a rippling wave, leathery skin followed in the muscle's wake. Within 15 seconds the entire wing was whole once more. Naruto was even more annoyed. Of course this creature could regenerate. Of course. Even so, because the dragon was so large it took a while for him to regenerate when heavily damaged. Great Red spun around and glared at Naruto. He gnashed his teeth together and snarled. His wings fully extended he flapped hard and ascended higher. A great jet of flame lanced out but Naruto dodged. Great Red began rapid firing as he attempted to pin down his wily foe. Naruto for his part was dodging around with some effort. But he was having an internal debate on how to end this fight. He was aware of the position this dragon held. Its death could cause serious harm to this dimension. Another gout of flame nearly seared him as it came closer than the last one. Oh, I could just seal this place off. Yeah, okay, that'll work. Sorry big guy. Naruto sped forward and his left hand smashed a heavy hook across the dragon's nose. Great Red recoiled and snarled again. How could he not hit this guy? Naruto summoned a Rasengan twice the size of the previous one. His arm came forward and the energy ball smashed into the scaled flank of Great Red's right shoulder. A harsh grating sound echoed out as the Rasengan tried to drill through the tough scaly hide. Great Red thrashed around and his neck smacked into Naruto and blew him 100 feet away. TCH. Fuck off human. That hurts like a bitch. A shallow round chunk was carved from the dragon's shoulder. But without more time the Rasengan was unable to drill further. Just do it and kill this creature already. We have somewhere to be. Kurama said. The giant fox kept commenting his thoughts on how Naruto seemed to be wasting time. Naruto grimaced. There is no other choice I suppose. I need to pop this guy anyway. The clone sitting inside the forest outside Kuo popped. Even though part of the refined sage chakra was lost while traveling across dimensions, a huge surge of sage chakra rushed into Naruto's body. His discipline asserted itself as he focused the chakra and momentarily stilled. The next moment he was in sage mode and his body reflected the changes. Ophis and Great Red noticed the changes. Before they could comment, a blinding golden flash of light shot out of Naruto. When the light died down, they saw Naruto in his former glory. Glowing with pure golden energy, Naruto floated in his six-path sage mode. His body shone like a beacon as he surveyed his opponent. Before anyone could blink, Naruto was in front of Great Red. A truth-seeking ball was cupped in his palm as he shoved it between the dragon's eyes. Like a rock through wet tissue paper, the black ball disintegrated the scales and skin as it touched them. Naruto was quickly stuck up to his elbow inside the dragon's forehead when Great Red reacted. He violently thrashed his head about, but Naruto did not move from his position. His arm was harder than steel as it stayed locked in place. The dragon shuddered as more of his head was vaporized. At Naruto's mental command, the truth-seeking ball rapidly expanded. Great Red was now desperately roaring as he clawed at Naruto's position. But a second truth-seeking ball was used to block the incoming strike and simultaneously destroy the offending pause. Then in a moment the echoing roars went silent. Ophis stared wide-eyed. Where once the strongest existence's head had been was now nothing. In a matter of moments, Great Red had been annihilated and his opponent did not seem to be trying. Ophis could not feel fear or awe. But before immense power that was Naruto, she believed she was humbled. She was an ant to his strength. The great corpse floated absently in the void as Naruto turned to face the small girl. He was unable to sense any form of emotion from her. An oddity, but he didn't care. "Do you wish to block my passage as well?" His voice was calm, but an obvious threat lingered in the question. She stared at him and shook her head. Naruto then turned and in a blink was gone. Ophis sensed him speeding towards the strange section of the gap. Why would he be going there? The dead air gave way around him as Naruto sped forward. He could see his destination coming up. Unconsciously his speed picked up. Only half aware to his surroundings, Naruto was busy thinking over his return home. The fact was, getting home was going to be the easy part. When he returned is when all hell was going to break loose. It's been hundreds of years here in this dimension, so everything back home will be hundreds of years older too, right? But Kurama mentioned the theory of relativity. How did it go again? Mentally the large fox sighed. Naruto was still Naruto, no matter how much he changed. And overly complicated explanations would never stick long in the blonde's brain. That time can move differently depending on where you were relative to other places. So a second is still a second, and a minute a minute. But 1 minute in this dimension might be a year back home, or year might only be 1 second back home. Or they might experience time equally, and 1 second was 1 second no matter where you are. Right, so we could arrive home and no time has passed, or it could be 1,000 years in the future? Basically, we have no idea, so the only way to know is to hurry back home as quickly as possible and hope for the best. Ah yeah, I remember. So how long? Naruto immediately stopped his question and sharply turned, coming to a stop. A wave of air flew around as his slipstream washed over the area. A ways off, he could see hundreds of figures appearing. The dark energy associated with devils wafted off the group. The fluttering bat-like wings helped further identify them. Who? Naruto curiously observed a figure he recognized appear. It was the guy who had released him from that rock. What had the guy been going on about at the time? He expected Naruto's help since he freed him from the rock? He snorted. Fat chance of that. Brothers, sisters, hear me out. Raphael stood before a huge crowd of angels. He was floating gently on a pure white cloud and his halo shined a brilliant gold. His voice carried a sense of importance and the crowd was silent to listen. One doesn't ignore a serious seraph. A great calamity is occurring. Down on earth the beast is wreaking havoc and causing the death of thousands. Michael is content to weather this storm. He will passively sit out while our charges are slaughtered and our tenants desecrated. The creature who led our Lord to his grave flaunts his freedom and commits heinous sins. Michael would have us not interfere. The prayers are flooding heaven for assistance. This creature means to bring the apocalypse upon us and we do nothing. Raphael's words had the crowd captivated. He spoke appealing words and played upon their senses of justice and servitude. His shout only further rallied them to his ideas. Then his voice continued in barely a whisper. But everyone could hear him. No, I personally can't stand by any longer. For thousands of years I sought righteousness at our Lord's side. I acted in accordance with his will and was a protector of the innocent. When he passed, When he passed, I vowed to do everything in my power to uphold our late Lord's will. Raphael stood hunched over, his fists tightly clenched and his head bowed. Among the crowd, murmurs of approval scattered around. Then Raphael stood straight, his passion blazed clearly as he shouted, "No longer can I stand by. I shall seek out the beast and do all in my power to slay it and every other evil within our world. No more shall I be a bystander. Brothers, sisters, WHO will join me?" A booming cheer rang out. Golden halos buzzed as all the heavenly power shook the ground. Pure white feathered wings sprang up from hundreds of backs as the angels ascended and quickly went to the armory. Raphael grinned madly as he saw the effect his speech had. Just as Naruto was about to start moving again, a second rift appeared behind him in the gap. A massive wave of heavenly power surged through the black void. Gleaming halos heralded the arrival of a tide of angels. The vibrant light glinted off their golden armor and glowing golden swords were clenched tightly in their hands. Without a second glance at Naruto, the angels rushed towards the gathering devils. None of them knew what 666 looked like. But if there was a gathering of evil devils, surely he was their ringleader. Rizavam stared shocked. Hundreds of angels came streaming towards his gathering followers. What was Michael doing? Did he think fighting in the void would not count as break any of the tentative peace agreements? No matter the outcome, a second war was sure to be sparked from this coming fight. A roar of anger came from one of his subordinates and the hot-blooded devil drew his weapon. A giant vengeful blade. It sucked in the light around it. An inviting blackness darker than the void. Fueled by his rage and purpose. His blade trailing behind him, the devil charged to meet the angels head first. It took the rest of his devils a moment to understand the situation, but they were inspired by their charging comrade and similar shouts of anger heralded a massive devil counter-charge. Rizavam wanted to sigh at the unstoppable battle. But instead, when a bolt of holy energy flashed by his face, he felt his old grudges rekindle. He turned towards the familiar energy signature. "It's been quite a long time, Raphael? Do you come seeking my death? How did you even know of my movements here?" And no. Floating in his bright glory was Raphael, seraph and one of the strongest angels. A great warrior and commander from bygone ages. He had led countless battles against devilkind and any others who opposed his lord's mandate. And above all, the one angel Rizavam absolutely loathed. Raphael had personally defeated him twice before and his tactical plans had thwarted dozens of Rizavam's schemes. Raphael broke his stony gaze to snort derisively. "Where is he? Where is 666? Do you sinners think you can plot with that beast and not face heaven's retribution? Tell me now, scum." Meanwhile, Naruto observed the growing conflict for several minutes, before he snapped out of his pondering and turned towards his target. Only 100 meters away was the space within the void where he could open a rift to the larger dimensional network. The gateway out of this tightly connected cluster. Naruto was there within the blink of an eye. His body thrummed with his dense power. The six-path sage chakra was amazingly strong, and to force open this gateway he was going to need a lot of it. Focusing, he swiftly sped through 100 hand signs. This technique had no name. The control needed was simply so intense he needed the signs to help properly contort his chakra. The battle was heating up and waves of power and mist attacks were flinging in all directions. Already dozens had fallen and the fight was only heating up. Before Rizavam and Raphael could cross blades, Naruto made his move. From his stretched fingertips a huge shimmering wave of pale chakra came forth. As it exited his body he sped through a dozen more hand signs and created a clone for good measure. Next to him the clone immediately gathered the dissipating chakra and started shaping it into a hollow ring 4 meters in diameter. Naruto had just finished the next step and moved into the center of the ring. He extended his arms and legs fully out and floated there shaped like a stumpy starfish. With a grunt of exertion, a cascade of brilliant golden six-path sage chakra emerged from his body and connected to the ring on all sides. Naruto was now channeling the greater portion of his chakra into the ring. It was his first time doing this hypothetical technique and Kurama had agreed he should err on the side of caution and overcharge the portal to be safe. As his power left his body it emitted a titanic wave of pressure. Over 1,000 meters away the fighters instantly stilled, their movements restricted by the overwhelming pressure. All eyes turned to look. Illuminated inside his ring and glowing vibrantly, Naruto cut the figure of an otherworldly god. Rizavam and Raphael had paused in their exchange of blows to see what was happening. The ring suddenly began pulsing and crushing waves of pressure were rhythmically washing over everyone. Over half the fighters passed out and the rest struggled to remain conscious. Inside the pulsing ring, Naruto suddenly hunched over into a ball. Then he yelled out his effort as he released a final wave of 6 paths Sage Chakra. The portal flashed brighter than ever before and the clone had to shield its eyes to not be blinded. The onlookers had not forewarning and those still conscious now had to fight the after effects of being temporarily blinded. The portal hummed with energy as Naruto stabilized it. He would certainly need to figure out a way to streamline this technique. It took way too long and way too much energy to be useful besides in this dire situation. And then he disappeared. One moment he was there in the portal and the next he was gone. His clone had already popped, and the only sign that Naruto had ever been there was the floating ring of chakra. The fighters suddenly found themselves unrestricted and the angels being more resistant to light recovered their sight first. Following Naruto's departure, a great slaughter occurred where the followers of Rizavam were slain by the angels' rage. They realized their true target had somehow escaped. Never mind the sheer power he had emitted. Surely their righteous cause would have won out, but now they did not know where he was beyond possibly following him through his portal. Rizavam stared in dismay as his forces were obliterated. He was still quickly trading blows with Raphael as the angel took his rage out on the devil. 666 had used the fight as a diversion. How dare he? VVV. Naruto's view instantly changed when he thought of traveling through the rift. One moment he was looking into the endless void and the next he was staring into the most chaotic scene he had ever witnessed. Literally millions of portals similar to his own were dotted across an unfathomably vast void. Similar to the one he had just come from, but the air was much thicker and he could feel the pull of gravity towards the center. But from those uncountable portals streamed a horror show of creatures. Billions of creatures were locked in an all-out melee in front of him. They were of every imaginable species and makeup. It was a frantic, bloody free-for-all everywhere he looked. Suddenly a small card appeared in front of him. He reached out and caught it. Before reading, "Greetings. You have established a portal to the DXD cluster, 666 Apocalypse variant. You are originally from the Elemental Nations cluster, 5th Shinobi World War variant. If you wish to return, you should feel a pull in your mind towards the portal. Finally, congratulations on connecting to the Central Dimensional Network. Once a portal is opened, it cannot be closed. Hope you can protect this one. That is all. Kurama, do you know what this is about? Aw shit, I totally forgot about this place. Okay, basically every possible thing ever can exists in its own dimension. And there are an infinite number of parallel dimensions. They all connect here, so naturally over time different worlds found this place. And there are some war-obsessed parasite-like races. So these dimensions have basically been in never-ending war against one another here. More and more dimensions discover this place and the fighting only keeps growing. It was way less chaotic when my soul first passed through the place towards our dimension." Naruto silently took a moment to try and process that, before he asked a question that was plaguing his thoughts. "So, does that mean there is a dimension where Sakura dates me?" In his cage the fox fought the urge to break free and strangle his container. "Yes. And before you ask, yes. Literally anything you can imagine it exists somewhere is someplace." Naruto nodded his head and absently dodged a stray arrow that flew by. Before he grinned and said, "That is so awesome." But then he quickly sobered his enthusiasm. "I need to get home." The angels were gathering up the remains of their dead and tending to their wounded. But most of them just looked on as Rizavam and Raphael dueled. Their strikes were growing steadily in strength and they both showed no signs of slowing down. Rizavam had no backup plan in place. He was supposed to be conquering a foreign dimension right now. So he was growing increasingly desperate. VVV. The thrumming noise echoed through the dead air of the void. The angels turned to look and drew back in disgust. A disgusting 7-armed, 3-legged, 2-headed beast was exiting the portal. Its visible skin looked to be pale white and its 43 beady red eyes were quickly taking in the surroundings. It hung in the air by a pair of sharp metallic wings. It was vaguely humanoid in shape, and then the angels realized it was equipped in dull purple chainmail and carried a curved dagger in each 9-fingered hand. It suddenly turned towards the portal and shrieked. It sounded like a mix between a human baby crying and the high-pitched whine an incoming artillery shell emits. Unknown to those in the void, the creature was a scout. And it had just shrieked the all-out, "Go ahead, green-lit attack plan." This cluster's guardian was dead. Dodge, parry, dodge, dodge, snap wrist, dodge, stab. Naruto was in constant motion as he navigated across the battle. The absolute chaos going on around him made it hard to be aware of all potential dangers. He seemed to be in between small green monsters fighting against tall, thin blue ones. Elsewhere he could see thousands of humans carrying weapons that constant popped and propelled small lead projectiles. They had small trails of fire coming from their feet, and they were in constant group motion shooting towards the rush of fat rat creatures charging them. There were so many things happening he couldn't take it all in. Instead he was just focusing on his movement. Dodge again, twist, and flicker 100 meters to the right. Constant motion and his sharp awareness allowed him to evade everything coming his way. He glanced back to where he had arrived. A huge stream of deformed purple monsters were flowing into the portal. But there had been nothing he could do. The portal had not been affected by the several seals he had tried to use on it. A small mental tug was guiding him towards his own dimension. He just hoped it wouldn't be too far away. This whole situation was so bizarre it was mentally draining. Raphael blasted another putrid green spear out of the way. A dozen burns littered his previously majestic armor. His sword had dissolved on contact with the creature's weapon, and his energy was starting to get taxed by the amount of power he was forced to put into each kill. He had lost sight of Rizavum in the chaos of the purple monster's arrival. His group of angels had already been slaughtered or fled back to heaven. He had entrusted several to deliver an urgent message to Michael. After the creatures had come through the portal, their first wave had crashed against his forces and cut through them quickly. But in the several minutes the fight had lasted, unexpected reinforcements had arrived. Gods. Every god he knew of and dozens he had never heard of before had all come. This was probably the first time every god had gathered in one place ever. And they were losing. The situation was out of hand. The Norse led by Odin, the Romans led by Jupiter, the Hindu led by their various leaders, ancient Aztec gods, even several new gods that were powered by insane cults. Every single one was here and fighting against the invading monsters. And being overwhelmed. Not only were they vastly outnumbered, but the acidic weapons burned through anything. Divinity and ultimate defenses were worthless. Regeneration was stunted, and any weapon that came in contact with the foreign weapons melted. Over 200 gods had already been erased from existence. And they were all desperately trying to keep the monsters from entering into Earth. The humans would stand no chance. For this reason a huge ceiling barrier had been erected around the portal, and the creatures were viciously targeting any weak points in the gods' defense to break free. It was inevitable they would. Dodging, Raphael saw an acidic arrow barrel past his chestplate. A thin line carved into the metal. Only for a sword to come down and cleave him from head to toe. His halves drifted apart, and then his body broke apart in a shower of bright light. His soul scattered and his existence destroyed. Several other gods near Raphael also went down back to back. A gap in their defense opened up, and a huge surge of purple monsters broke free of the containment. As they exited, they opened small rifts and jumped through into the different dimensions in this cluster. Down on Earth and across the different realms where different races resided, the apocalypse began. Naruto was sick of dodge, so he had created a huge Rasengan and was just plowing forward. It carved a bloody path through the fighting bodies. It was somewhat draining to maintain the spin on such a huge shape, but he still had plenty of chakra in reserve, and his previous pace was unacceptable. If the growing tugging sensation meant anything, he was probably getting close to his own dimension's rift. The Rasengan was spewing blood and metal in all directions. Naruto sped by the mangled bodies and could see the slight awe and fear on the various faces as he cut through dozens of different fights. His path drove him straight through a giant being's stomach, leaving a gaping bloody hole. Then the sensation flickered and he felt the tug coming from behind him. He had overshot his arrival. He cut the Rasengan and turned. A quick body flicker saved him from being filled by 100 silver arrows. Before his portal, giant toad men fought with Naganatas against snake men who carried strange half-moon blades. The fighting was slightly calmer in this section as the various races did not seem to be as destructively powerful. Naruto flickered in between the two armies and found himself before his portal. A small shiver ran down his back, and without further delay he entered the portal and disappeared in a flash of light. Issei stared in dumb shock. His dragon gauntlet was gone? His entire left arm was severed from the elbow down. Kiba lay dead off to his right, half his face melted into a puddle on the ground. Akeno and Rias stood back to back, blasting indiscriminately at the approaching three monsters. The monster in front of him leered with its central mouth. The other four were actually laughing. Then it struck and its massive cleaver cut Issei in half from shoulder to hip. For several moments he lay there in shock, not registering his situation. One of his lungs was still functioning and he screamed a soul-wrenching scream of pain. The pain was too much and he passed out. He was dead not 30 seconds later. Rias choked back a sob as she watched another of her peerage go down. Akeno had just been hit by an arrow in the thigh and she hadn't seen Kaneko since the small girl had been thrown out of the shattered clubhouse window. It's all over? Rias fell to her knees and grabbed Akeno's body in her arms. She sobbed once and then the giant monster standing over her struck and they knew no more. A scarlet light blasted forth from the ruins of the clubhouse and Sirzex appeared on the inscribed Gremory circle. His peerage was with him and each one was fully armored and prepared to fight. Sirzex looked down and saw the wrecked body of his baby sister. The blast of furious energy that came from Kuo Academy lit the night sky crimson and shook the city in a massive earthquake. In all his glory, Sirzex rose into the sky on his 12 demonic wings. An aura of anger and power radiated around him as he scanned the school campus for the one responsible. He spotted a dozen monster and was there in a blink. The first one died instantly as he tore its head off. The other reacted quickly and their acidic weaponry forced the man called Lucifer into a defensive position. Dodged and taking minor blows on his armor. He blitzed past several strikes and took a dagger through the calf when he kicked his foot through the chest of one of the monsters and turned to pile drive a second spine into the dirt. 3 arrows sprouted from his back as they bypassed his armor and one tore into his right lung. He gasped and roared in anger. Was he the great Devil King going to go down so easily? Could he not avenge his sister and slay her killers? Graphia came rocketing down and right before Sirzek's eyes her body pulped against a monster's club. A bloody mist coated his face and his hand came up to wipe his dead wife's remains off his cheek. A strangled cry escaped his throat as the monsters crowded around him cruelly laughed. His fury ignited further beyond anything he had ever experienced. Summoning his vast remaining devil energy, Sirzek supercharged his body. He glanced up and saw the wary expressions cross the monsters' faces. 100 more came through a rift on the school lawn and Sirzek smiled grimly. In a massive explosion, Kuo was wiped from the map. Sirzex had channeled everything into a suicide technique he knew and taken his wife and sister's killers with him to the grave in a massive fiery explosion. The underworld was in chaos as devils died left and right on the streets of their cities. These weak-class devils were killed like flies as the invading monsters tore them apart and burned down their buildings. Massive explosions erupted across the landscape as the high-class devils desperately launched last-ditch effort attacks in vain. A similar scene played out in heaven as angels died in droves against the invaders. Heaven's golden gates lane twisted in ruin and half melted as the monsters broke into the sanctuary and fought against the inhabitants. Michael had been rallying the angels and Gabriel had been near the gate when they attacked. He found her missing a leg and her guts spilled out against the pristine clouds that made up the floor. She smiled weakly at him and said, Hey, do not cry Michael. I don't want this Haru." Gabriel's pretty face was coated in vomit and blood as she puked while lying on her back. Her body stilled and Michael felt a tear roll down his face. A dark rift opened near him and Michael turned defensively. The other monsters were still occupied rampaging across God's holy church. His golden throne was a twisted mess on the floor and angel blood coated the floor. Azazel stepped into heaven for the first time in hundreds of years. He turned and smiled sadly at Michael. I may no longer be an official seraph, but I want to go out as I came into this world. Fighting back to back with you, brother. He saw Gabriel splayed against the ground and choked. Michael merely nodded. He didn't think he could speak right now. Wreathed in golden and dark energy, the two 12-winged angels turned and faced the approaching wave of monsters. They shouted their fury and charged. Azazel died first, speared through the gut and half his head sheared off. He was stuck on the spear shaft and mounted into the ground. Michael was obliterated in a sickly green blast of energy. His skin melted from his bones and his blood evaporated. A bleached skeleton emerged from the energy wave onto to disintegrate to dust and disappeared. Heaven had fallen. In the void, the various remaining gods were launching their last stand against the unending tide of monsters. The earth fell soon after. The various human militaries only have some success against the monsters. Nuclear explosions littered the landscape as governments launched last-ditch effort attacks and craters marred much of Earth. Already the ocean was lowering as it filled in hundreds of massive craters. The underworld fell last. The various realms of the gods had been exposed and looted by the attacking monsters. With no defenders, they had proved no issue. But the various devils, yokai, and fallen angels had managed to hang on for a couple hours. The underworld was vast and exterminated. All the hideouts took time to be uncovered and obliterated. Within 14 hours the DXD cluster, 666 Apocalypse variant, was completely exterminated and looted. Just another unfortunate dimensional cluster unprepared to fight against the overpowering races from the greater dimensional universe. Naruto stepped through and appeared back in his own dimension. Before him was the exact same sight he remembered seeing right before Kagaya had blasted him through some crazy portal when he had tried to use his dad's Hirishin. Somehow the combined space-time techniques had blasted him through the central dimensional network and straight into the strange cluster he had been trapped in. But that didn't matter anymore. Before him floated the tyrannical bitch. Her back was turned as if she had just turned after blasting him and was about to head off. Naruto flashed back through all he had been through. The Fourth Shinobi World War had raged throughout his childhood, and he had been trained under wartime conditions and learned all the tricks of the ninja trade out in the field. The free-for-all had consumed every nations across the continent, and no one had been victorious at the end. Konoha had been a shamble of what it once was and had absorbed the remnants of Suna, and various other minor villages. Iwa and Kumo had combined tougher, and Kiri had been totally wiped out. Then the combined remains of Iwa and Kumo had blitzed the rebuilding Konoha and along with Akatsuki kicked off the Fifth World Shinobi War not 3 years after the Fourth. The villages were both destroyed and small roving groups of ninja fought against each other in small skirmishes. It was never safe to stay in the same place longer than 4 days. Somehow Kagaya had been unsealed. She had been going around killing off the small groups of roving ninja. She had happened upon Naruto's group and killed off the last remains of his friends. They had been engaged in altering the landscape of Earth Country before he had become a dimensional traveler. Huge craters littered the landscape, trees burned all around, and he could just make out the mangled bodies of his friends. Only several remained. Kagaya had disintegrated the majority of them with her all-killing ash bone when she first struck. Now back and only several moments after his apparent departure, Naruto felt his old rage ignite. His presence couldn't be masked, so Naruto wasted no time and flew as fast as he could towards her back. They had a score to settle and Naruto was going to get his revenge, one way or another.